G'day there guys, Markee here, back at it again with another episode of r/EntitledParents. Now if you love today's content, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, a like on the video, and tell me what you think of all these entitled parents. Posted by user The Booksmith, titled, My Entitled Father Nearly Burns Down the House. So normally I try to keep these light-hearted, but this only just happened last night, and because of it, I have gotten very little sleep, so I may or may not get into more of a rant in some places. Apologies. For context, my father is a dialysis patient with double kidney failure and can barely see due to his diabetes, and he barely listens to the doctor. He is also one of the most entitled people I know. For proof of this, I have 2 more stories on this sub where he demands I give one of my $300 bikes to him and the other where we go shopping and my father doesn't understand what closing means. So, flashback to 3 AM. I am asleep in my room and suddenly my cat comes sprinting into the room and knocks a crap ton of things over, causing me to wake up. Immediately I smell smoke and am very confused, but don't yet panic. Unsurprisingly, my father has burnt food at 3 AM before, so I just assume that's what's happened and that he took care of it. Not this time apparently, because I sit up and immediately the smoke in the house is obvious. While it isn't so thick you can't see it, it's definitely thick enough to know something is very, very wrong. I rush out into the kitchen, and sure enough I see a saucepot billowing smoke like a fudging smokestack. I immediately shut off the burner and turn on the stove fan. Looking into the kitchen and living room, which are right next to each other, is something I can only describe as looking through the cliché smoke haze in a stoner house multiplied by 5. I immediately wake my father up by yelling about how he left a fudging pan on the burner, then I start opening windows. All of them were shut since it was below 60 where I live. My father immediately starts cursing, and when I ask him if he's going to help me air out the house, he says that he doesn't feel well and that I need to do it myself. He then gets up to go take a 20-minute crap in the bathroom, which meant I was down 1 exhaust fan. This fudging idiot almost burns down the house, then immediately refuses to help. My conversation with my dad was enough to wake my mother, and she runs out of her room panicking because of the smoke in the air. I explain the situation, and she starts to yell at my father, who claims it wasn't his fault because he had meant to come back to the soup, he just fell asleep by accident. As these two were having an argument, I start busting out our window fans, turning them to face outwards to get all of the smoke out of the house. My mum eventually starts to help, and all the arguing had awoken my brother, who was asleep and didn't notice the smoke, since his door was shut with the massive window in there wide open. He loves sleeping in the cold. And at this point, we're all ticked, and my brother works first shift, so he gets to miss out on an hour of sleep basically. While this is going on, my father is still in the bathroom, refusing to help anyone because he is a total piece of crap, and the 5 cats are freaking the hell out. So we're trying to get all the windows open and fans in them, while cats are sprinting between potential exits, all while my father gets to hide from his mistakes. We get all the fans blowing, and me and my mum sit down in the living room to awake, and both with headaches from the smoke. Now, if at this point in the story you were wondering why no smoke detectors went off, potentially saving us from having to do all this, well then don't worry, my dipcrap father has the answer. You see, we were wondering the same thing. How smoke detectors are wired into the house's electrical with a battery backup in case of power outage, so there is no way that they shouldn't have been working. So I twist one off the wall and notice the detector has been switched off. Assuming this was the case for both, my mother and I go back and forth discussing why they were shut off. Then, my father comes out and says in a voice so matter-of-fact that it was almost like he just wasn't responsible for nearly burning down our house less than 30 minutes ago, I actually shut them off last time I made steak in the skillet because the smoke kept causing them to go off. So this dumb motherfricker actually shut off the smoke detectors and didn't turn them back on when he was done. This dumb motherfricker nearly started a fire in a trailer. I don't know what you know about trailers, but they are built out of super flammable and cheap materials. So a fire in a trailer is like lighting a fudging firecracker. You see, usually what my dad does is at least funny in hindsight, but he literally almost fudging kills us, if not from fire risk, then from the potential smoke inhalation, and literally sits there like a fudging child doing nothing. Honestly, I'm still ticked because I couldn't sleep for hours, and the house still smells like smoke. God damn it. Anyways, thanks for reading. Quick edit. No, putting my father in a home isn't an option. We don't have the money to, and he isn't mentally unstable, so there is no forcing him. My mother won't kick him out because she feels bad because of his health. Posted by user Nithes124. Titled, My Dad's Girlfriend Thinks She Can Tell Me What to Do. I know the title makes me seem like the entitled one, but hear me out. My dad's girlfriend of about 8 months now got really mad at me this morning because I said that I didn't want to mow the lawn today. Granted, it isn't hard work, but I have a lot of other things I have to do today. I have to go to my neighbor's and help her with her sprinklers because she physically can't do it herself because of her age and her physical problems. I have to help my girlfriend's dad move a ton of stuff to storage, and I also have to go into work today because one of my friends called off sick, and I told him I'd cover for him. I told her I'd just do it tomorrow because it's easy work, and she lost her mind, saying how I have to do what she says. I tell her that if she wants it done so badly, that her son can do it. He's 15 and does nothing around the house besides making messes that I have to clean. She gets even more mad and starts yelling at me that I need to give her my phone, my iPad, my Switch, and every other electronic that I own. I tell her to eat crap. I didn't like that I did, but she was peeing me off, and I want to go let my chickens out like I usually do every morning. Can someone tell me if I was in the wrong for saying that I'll just do it tomorrow, or is she the crazy one? Edit 1. So, I talked to her a little bit ago, and I told her flat out that if things don't change in the house, that I will talk to my dad about charging you rent. I told her that I wasn't okay with how she was trying to push me around, and that if it continued, I would stop doing anything she needs. She tried to talk over me a few times, but I raised my voice the way a teacher would get everyone's attention, and it shut her up real quick. I think we came to an agreement, but just in case, I had a voice recording of the whole conversation that I had with her. So, if I have to, I will show it to my dad and let him decide. Posted by user California Old Timer. Titled, Me and my babies need to use your pool. I don't want them swimming at the community center with the N. People have been asking me for stories, so here's one from when I was younger. This was on Choosing Beggars, but they said to put it here instead. Okay, backstory. This happened in 1965, just for some clarification. I was 26 then, 81 now. I had a pool party yesterday, and thought about this run-in that I had. So, in my old neighborhood, my wife and I rented a home in a community of around 23 houses. Out of these 23 homes, we were 1 out of 7 with a pool, because the previous owner ordered a pool when he had the house built. Adding a pool was around a $2,000 option, so many people didn't get it. Because I had a pool, a lot of people would try to come over to swim. Now, I was quite generous with my pool if people called first. Now, understandably, some weekends I wanted some peace and quiet. A new family had moved in to the left of me, and they heard that I was generous with my pool. So the mum and her 3 kids just came over in swimsuits and asked to use my pool. I said that I was tired and next weekend they could swim, just not right now. I told her that she and her kid could go to the community center. She and her kids could have gotten in for around 25 cents at that time. She said, "Oh, come on, I don't want to drive all that way. 3 miles. Plus, I don't want my babies in that water with all those man people." I'm sorry, I just got off a 60-hour work week, and I don't want to have people over, sorry. Due to her racist attitude, I didn't want her in my home, so I was very dismissive of her using my pool. "Oh, come on, my babies are hot and need to cool off. Just let us swim for an hour and we'll leave. I don't want them in that nasty pool. Just be a good neighbor." "No, I'm sorry." She then whispers something to her kids, and then they proceed to beg to use my pool. I just closed the door on her. A few hours later, I hear my dog barking and people screaming. I look out the window, and the mum and her kids hopped my fence to gain access to my pool, and they were being cornered by my dog Cupcake. Cupcake was a big pit bull, but she was a sweetie, always defended me and my property. I take the family out of my yard, and tell them if they came over to my property again, I would call the police. She also did try to gain access to the other neighbors' pools, and was promptly banned from there as well. Posted by user XXImore74LXX, titled, "Bought a new Nintendo Switch to reward myself. Entitled mother wanted me to give it to her since she doesn't buy stuff for her entitled kid." This happened about a month ago, and I finally decided to write about it on Reddit. I work in a Starbucks coffee shop located in a mall where Karens are known to swarm. I've heard a few stories about them arguing about their coffee not being done properly, but I didn't think that I would experience an encounter with one myself. Unfortunately, I did. After getting paid minimum wage brewing coffee for 3 months, I finally saved enough money to buy myself a Nintendo Switch, which the gaming store in the mall sold for around $500. My first mistake was buying it on a Saturday, which was the day the entitled parents usually bring their kids to the mall. At that time, I didn't really think much about it, as the chances of actually having an episode was low. So, on that day, after I was done with my shift, I went to the store and paid for a Switch, along with a few games like Smash Bros. And Breath of the Wild. While the store employee was scanning my card, I glanced at my surroundings in order to avoid having awkward eye contact with the employee, and outside, I saw entitled mother, 40-ish, and entitled kid, 10-ish. They looked pretty normal, so I didn't think too much about them. When I took the paper bag and carried it out of the store, entitled kid somehow noticed that I was carrying a Nintendo Switch. Maybe he already knew while I was in the store, and began to beg entitled mother for one. I knew that it was a normal reaction for a child, so I ignored him and continued walking to the exit of the mall. Suddenly, entitled mother shrieked loud as hell and scared the crap out of me, and they said, "I recognize you. You're the guy at Starbucks." Since I obviously didn't know who the entitled mother is, I just replied with, "Yeah, I work there. Listen, my son really wants that Nintendo Switch. It's his birthday tomorrow, and since you're not going to play with it anyway, you should just give it to me." From entitled kid's reaction, I could obviously tell that she was lying, and so I said, "Well, it's only $500. You could buy one yourself." Obviously, replying was a mistake. I should have just walked away. Now, entitled mother was mad. She shouted, "You wouldn't have time to play it anyways. You have a job. My son doesn't have any toys at home to play with, so you better give him the Switch." I was just shocked at how she demanded me to just give away a $500 console. It was her fault that she didn't buy entitled kid toys, so she shouldn't go around asking for free crap. I had a feeling that this wasn't the first time that entitled mother had done this. Entitled kid was practically begging entitled mother to stop with this crap. Luckily, before the situation escalated, the store employee that helped me with the purchase earlier saw the whole thing and offered entitled kid a second-hand PSP, probably to not only calm entitled mother down, but also maybe because he felt sorry that entitled kid had to deal with this crap every day and gave him some form of entertainment. I thanked the store employee for helping me with the situation, and even giving him a $10 tip as a way of showing my appreciation. Even though entitled kid was happy as hell about his new PSP, entitled mother was giving me a stone-cold glance as I walked away from her. Until now, I'm still afraid that I'll have another episode with her, because she knows that I work at Starbucks, but I can only hope for the best. Edit: a lot of people have been saying this, and I've checked. $500 included the games as well. It was the total cost of all the things I bought. I was just stupid and forgot that I've bought the games too. Edit 2. I know the kid isn't entitled. I even said he reacted like a normal kid, but I didn't know what to call him, so I just went with EK. Posted by user Brudder66, titled, "Entitled mother thinks I should pay her kid for work he didn't do." It's been a while since I posted. This happened about a couple of months ago. First off, I am disabled. I'm a one-legged amputee and had a stroke a couple of years ago. I've recovered mostly from the stroke. Some paralysis in my left arm still, but I can still do most things I did before. I also live alone and am pretty independent. One thing I can't do is mow my yard. I live on a very big lot, and the backyard is big enough for a couple more houses to be there, and the front and side are almost as big. I do have a riding mower, but I have a tendency to fall off when I use it. One leg and a poor sense of balance, not a great combination. A neighbor's teenage son would mow it for me once every week for $50. He graduated and went into the military, so had to find someone new this year. I have a friend who will mow for me for free, but I don't like to impose on him, and I figure most teenagers could use an extra $50. Last year, some new neighbors moved in, consisting of a mother in her early 40s and her 2 teenage sons. I didn't know about the boy's father, but she apparently had a number of boyfriends who were always coming over and staying overnight. The older son, about 17, was always outside working on an old car that he had. I got to talking to him, and he said that he was trying to get it running, but couldn't afford all the parts he needs. So, I offered him the same deal I had with the other kid. I'd pay $50 a week for the kid to use my riding mower to mow the yard once a week. He jumped at it. The first couple of weeks went pretty good. I'd go ahead and pay him in advance, and then he mowed the yard. That way, if I had to leave or was napping, he didn't have to wait for his money. The third week he came, he asked if he could use my mower on his yard. His yard is tiny compared to mine. My backyard is almost twice the size of his front yard and back together. I told him to go ahead. I was going to a friend's house and would be back later, and paid him. I came back that evening, but it was too dark to really see the yard. The next day, I saw that my yards had not been mowed. I rolled over to his house with its newly trimmed yard and knocked. His mother answered. Now, I've never seen his mother wearing anything but an old terry cloth robe and house shoes. She apparently doesn't work, or really do much of anything. I asked for the kid, and she said that he'd gone somewhere with friends. I thought that was strange with everything going on. Not surprising though. I've never seen anyone at that house wearing a mask. I wear one anytime I leave the house. Anyway, I didn't see him that day, so my yard didn't get mowed. A couple days later it rained for a bit, so it was getting pretty tall. A few days later he came over, wanting to mow. He asked about the pay, and I told him he had never mowed it last week, so I'm not paying him this week. He made some comment about rain, and then about it being so high this time. I told him if he had mowed when he was supposed to, it wouldn't be so tall. He had already been paid for work he didn't do, and I wasn't going to pay him again. As he walked away, I heard him say, "A-hole." Shortly after this, his mum came over in her bathrobe and house shoes. I answered the door, and this was the conversation. "You need to pay my son. I paid him last week for something he didn't do. I'm not paying him again. But it rained last week. He couldn't mow. You can't blame him for the weather." It didn't rain until 2 days after he was supposed to mow. He didn't have any trouble mowing your yard. My yard's not that big. Yours is huge. Which is why I have a riding mower. Well, just pay him and he'll mow it. He still hasn't mowed it after the last time I paid him. Well, I won't let him mow it unless you pay him. Then what will you do? I have a friend who will mow it for free. I was really just helping your son out. You're just a cripple. You don't have friends. Yeah, I'm a cripple, but I guarantee I have more friends than some lazy, bloated hoe who spreads her legs for any guy she sees. Yeah, that really got her ticked. You'll be sorry. I know people who will kick your sorry ass. You'll be sorry you spoke to me like that. Thank you. That definitely was loud enough for the microphone to pick up. Now, turn and smile for the camera. I pointed to the security camera mounted on the eave of my house, pointed at the front door. I'm sure the police will enjoy hearing that you just threatened me. You know it's a felony to threaten a vulnerable person? Probably not, but it sounded good. She stuck her hand up in front of her face and took off back to her own house. I heard the door slam. Didn't see her for the rest of the day. My friend came and mowed the next day. I saw the kid out by his car watching. That night, he came over and apologized. We had a long talk, and honestly, he's not a bad kid. He's had a tough life. His father left when he was little, and his half-brother, who's 14, lives with his own father and only comes to stay occasionally. His mother doesn't even try to do anything but sleep and go to bars at night and bring home whatever guy is desperate enough to be with her. She takes any money that he gets. That's why he wanted to get paid. She insisted that he give her money. He has been trying to get money for the car parts, but she always takes his money. So I offered, instead of paying him in cash, I could just buy him the parts he needed. He loved the idea, and by mowing before noon, when she was still asleep, she wouldn't even know that he was mowing for me. He wants to move out, but has nowhere to go. I found out that he turns 18 in a couple of months, and I've told him he could stay with me then, as long as he obeyed the rules of my house. He's worried about what his mum might do, but I told him she can't do anything once he's 18. Besides, she tends to hide her face and go inside whenever she sees me. He told me she's scared that I might take the video to the police, and she's already been in trouble with the law. Besides, I happen to know the owners of that house is selling it, and she'll have to move soon anyway. Funniest part of the story is that the camera doesn't even work. The previous owner put it up and didn't take it with them. I just never took it down, and have never even messed with it. Posted by user Commotionable, titled, Entitled Parent Claims I Cut Her Off to Get My Oil Change First. Hey Reddit, so this happened last Saturday and I thought I would share. So I have a 2019 Kia Optima and her name is Frosty. Well, I had reached the mileage that makes her due for an oil change. So like the good car she is, she notifies me that she needs service. I schedule an appointment over the phone with the dealership for an oil change on Thursday. I pull up Thursday, and somehow my appointment doesn't exist. I figure it's whatever, let's do Friday. I pull up Friday, and they have a 2-hour delay. Apparently, despite the current situation in the world, people still want to drive and travel everywhere. Irritated, I ask for one of the very first appointments on Saturday morning. I'm now over the mileage. While I know it's not bad, I work Postmates and Grubhub on the side, so I'm worried of having an accident and with somebody's food in my car. Saturday morning, 8 a.m. I'm not a morning person, and when it's my day off, I like to sleep in and then wake up and play video games. But nope, I'm dressed and ready to sit in a waiting room while my car gets serviced. I grab my keys, phone, mask, and my switch and head for the dealership. I took a back road that connected to the main road the dealership was on to avoid traffic lights. While driving down the road, there was a silver minivan slowly tugging along. I get that we're in a residential area, but the van was doing like 10 in a 35. Once the opportunity arose, I passed them, and within a few minutes, I was pulling up to the service center. As I'm getting out of my car, putting on my mask, and confirming my 8:30 a.m. appointment, I was early by like 10 minutes. I handed the mechanic my keys. I reached in the back and grabbed my switch case and made my way to the waiting room. As I go to pull the handle, I hear a, "Hey, you!" Turning to look because I'm nosy AF, I notice a middle-aged woman, heavy set, messy mummy bun, and fitted for yoga. She was looking at me, face scrunched up like she was inhaling lemon juice. Yes? You need to move your car. I was in front of you and you passed me. As she was talking, I just walked into the waiting room. I took a seat and pulled out my switch. She opened the door with a huff. Probably mad I just walked off. You need to move your car. Me, not looking up from my screen, say, please leave me alone. I'm not in the mood. I have an appointment and I'm tired. Please sit down and wait like everybody else. Just as she was about to yell at me some more, a little human struggling to open the door called out to her and says, Mom? She helped him open the door, then directed her attention back to me. Look, I have somewhere to be and I really need my car looked at. Can't you just go somewhere else? Or better yet, don't you know people who work on cars? I raised my brow and looked at her. Whatever you were insinuating, I'm gonna ignore it. So please leave me alone. Mind you, this was my second please. "Ooh, a Switch, can I play?" "Sorry buddy, it's kind of expensive and I kinda just want to chill. But they have free arcade games you can play over there." I point to the showroom where the nice new lineup sits, and along the wall there are 3 arcade cabinets with chairs, all free to play. "Why can't he play your Switch? He's really good with his games at home. I'm sure nothing bad will happen." "I said no," I say sternly to the lady. The gears in the kid's head had already shifted to the arcade games, and he was already munching ghosts in Pac-Man without a care in the world. "Mommy, come watch me." "In a minute, dear." And the entitled parent looks at me. "Now look, it's your fault that we're going to have to sit here for longer, and he is going to get bored of those games eventually. Just let him play." "Look, if your appointment is before mine, they will do yours first. Just chill." "I didn't have time to set an appointment." "Tragic." Shrugging as I lean into the chair and booting up Animal Crossing. She scoffed, but after realizing she wasn't going to win, she plopped into a chair, never going to watch her offspring play some Pac-Man. About 30 minutes later, they were done with Frosty, and I was called to get the paperwork and what have you. The best part was before getting my keys, I got to listen to another service rep tell her it was going to be a 2-hour wait time as they were fully booked for the day, and all of their appointments were showing up. I know it's not that interesting, but meeting these people in the wild makes me lose whatever little faith I had in humanity. Posted by user Soul, titled, "You don't know my password? Ah, you're an idiot." So, my parents own a small business. We are a pack and ship store that also sells stuff for some local artists. We also do some other services such as faxing, fingerprinting, printing/copying, shredding, and notaries. My siblings, some friends, and I work at the store. I was at work about 2 weeks ago, and we were very busy during lunchtime, which is pretty normal for us. My brother, mum, and I were all there, and both my brother and my mum were handling their own things, and I was disinfecting the counter. This plump, piggish lady with a classic Karen haircut walks in. She looks like Dolores Umbridge if Umbridge had a Karen haircut. I finished disinfecting, put the rag back into the bucket of disinfectant, then went to the register to help her. She was pleasant at first. She told me she needed to print and sign 2 large documents, then scan them in and email them to the company they were for and herself. You know, just normal stuff for our business. So she emailed the documents to us, and sometimes Verizon phones struggle to connect to the data within our store, and our network is secure because of safety and privacy for our customers. She had a Verizon phone, and was instantly frustrated with how long it took for it to send. Around this time, her daughter came in, apparently in a rush. Her daughter barely spoke while she was there, but Karen had mentioned something along the lines of her needing to go to work soon. I'll call her college student. She seemed much nicer than her mother. So I finally got to the emailed documents. There were PDF files that required a password. So I disinfected the keyboard and gave it to Karen to log into the PDFs so we could print them. She typed her password in and then hit enter. Wrong password. She typed it in again. Wrong password. I lost count of how many times she tried to type in the same damn password and kept getting the wrong password. By now, all other computers in the store have come and gone. Another batch has come and gone. Finally, I sheepishly asked if there was a different one she could have used. That's when she started to get nasty. "I know my password. It's the name of my daughter." I exchanged a look with my brother, then quietly said, "Okay, ma'am, try different combinations then." She tried the password a few more times while I just waited awkwardly. College student was wandering around the store, looking for the things that we have for sale. I was watching her as I waited. Then Karen cleared her throat, so I looked at her. "Why are you just standing there like a frickin' idiot?" College student glared at her from across the store. I was a bit dumbfounded and, frankly, exhausted. So it took me a moment to actually register what she said. I just quietly apologized and stared at the counter. She kept grumbling about how I'm so unhelpful and I should be helping her more. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I suggested again to try different combinations. She did that snarly sigh thing that grouchy teenagers such as myself do. She typed in something else, and suddenly we had access to the documents. She grumbled something along the lines of "frickin' finally," then called her daughter over. I tried to print it, and it came up with an error code. So I called my mum over, and she helped me riddle it out. But then it printed absolutely tiny. So my mum and I spent a few minutes fandangling with settings. That's when I noticed that it was set to the receipt printer size. So I set it to letter size and printed it again. Perfection. Karen's face lit up and she said, "You're so smart. Thank you." Oh, the irony. The rest of the job was pretty routine. I told my brother what happened afterwards, and he gave me a hug. 3 minutes later, I hear my mum's voice raise. "She said what?" But that was the last we were expecting to hear from that lady, so there wasn't anything we could do. Work went back on like normal. But wait, there's more. We got a call about 40 minutes after CS and Karen left. My mum picked it up because my brother and I were handling customers. It was Karen's husband. He said they never got the email, and that Karen wanted to send it to his email as well now. So we sent the documents to them again, and all was fine. Then the husband stopped before he hung up and asked, "Did my wife cause any trouble while she was there?" She keeps saying the customer service there was awful, and I don't believe her. Not his exact words, but roughly what he said according to my mum. My mum told him what had happened. He thanked her and hung up. I like to believe that Karen got chewed out. Who knows? Posted by user Faco5045. Titled, "Entitled Mother Tells Me I Should Stop Using Perverts Underwear." So, when I was younger and thinner, I was obsessed with certain kinds of male underwear, hip briefs, and jock straps to be exact. Please don't judge me. I barely had any trunks or boxes, to be honest. Our story begins when I had to do an internship out of my hometown, and I decided to rent a room in a boarding house near my new job. It was a good place most of the time, but it had a tiny problem. The terrace doubled as a laundry room. Half was recreational space, the other half was for laundry duty, and we had no dryers, only washers, meaning that for drying our clothes, we had to put them on the clotheslines that were installed for that purpose. It was forbidden to dry clothes inside the rooms because the high humidity of the town wouldn't allow it, and the owner had bad experiences before with rooms literally stenching the whole building due to the wet clothes. With this context, you may see where this is going. I had to let all of my reveling underwear on the terrace for everyone to see, but apart from the embarrassment, I didn't think anything else would come of it. I was wrong. One of the other tenants in the house was your typical single mother with a little boy and a little girl. Because the place had no backyard, when the kids got bored, they went up to the terrace to play and get some air. It seems that in one of their trips, they saw me hanging my clothes. The boy found my jockstrap amusing and asked his mum if she could buy him something similar. This woman was livid. She went up, took all my clothes down, banged on my door, and threw it all in my face while ranting about me trying to corrupt children. She told me, shouted actually, that I could not hang my underwear out in the open, but I kindly reminded her of the building rules about wet clothes. She then said I should stop using perverts underwear so that it wouldn't be a problem. I just looked at her and asked if she was really trying to order me on what kind of underwear I should use. This was like a cold bucket on her, as she was left with no words. I guess hearing it out loud from another human being showed her how ridiculous the idea sounded. Her face turned red from embarrassment as she went away without answering. Some days later, the owner of the building told me she had spoken to him about the problem, referencing not only my private clothes, but everyone's underwear, and convinced him to buy a dryer in order to prevent it. In the end, Entitled Mother actually improved our quality of life thanks to her rant. So that's good, I guess. Thanks for reading, guys. Posted by user Hands Bobs. Titled, Old Woman, Entitled Mother, and Entitled Daughter Scream at Me, a Human on Crutches, for sitting in the priority seats on the bus. So, a bit of background. I have a genetic condition that causes me issue with my joints. My joints will randomly dislocate without reason, and it's very painful. My worst joint is by far my right knee. When my knee is really bad, I use crutches. I also can't drive when it's really bad because, well, it hurts like a mother trucker, and like a butt cheek on a stick. And I don't think it's a good idea to drive on strong painkillers. On this particular day, my knee had come out 4 times before I even left the house for work. So I got ready, grabbed my crutches, and headed out for the bus stop to get to work. Now, on to the cast. I am the author of this retelling and a human cursed with spaghetti joints. EM is the old lady who came from the fires of hell. EMD, the woman who was unfortunate enough to be raised by the woman who came from the fires of hell. And now, onto the story. So, I managed to get to the bus stop, and while there, I texted my boss that I was going to be 15 minutes late, as I had to get to the bus. But I would be in, and I would make the time up at lunch. The bus to work is uneventful and pretty empty, as I got on the bus at the start of the line. Work was also uneventful. You know, the usual. My ex-boss having a go at me for my knees coming out, the guy I worked with using my crutches as guns. Anyway, the day ends. I'm in a huge amount of pain, I have had a few more issues with my knee, I am pretty pooped up on drugs, prescription, and just want to get home. So I walk the 10 minutes or so to the bus stop. On the way back from work, the bus was always rammed. It's after the bus has been through the city, but too close to the city for people to get off. So when I get on the bus, there is no free seats. Someone kindly offers me their seat as I'm on crutches, and well, it would be stupid and dangerous to be stood up on the bus using crutches. I put my headphones in and start to think about what I want to eat when I get home. And that's when it happens. The entitled mother appears from nowhere. She taps me on the shoulder, and the following happens. Excuse me, young lady. These are priority seats. Can you please get up and let me sit down? Sorry, I can't do that. I point at my crutches that are in between my legs, so I'm not sure how she missed them. Well, you're younger than me. I doubt you need them anyway. Get up now and give me your seat. Look, I'm not giving you my medical history, but I can assure you that I am not on these for fun. I cannot stand up on the bus. I am entitled to be here. Ugh! Stop being so fudging rude. Get the frick up and stop being lazy, you attention-seeking tramp. At this point, I am ticked off. I say, look, I'm not moving, for you or anyone else. I can see 3 other people who are all sat on the seats, so get them to move. At this point, someone gets up and gives the old lady her seat. Too little too late, but whatever. No, I don't want your seat. You were older than the lazy Dumbo who was refusing to move for me. You sit down. The lady insists, and the woman eventually sits down. See, it's not so hard to respect the elderly. I put my headphones back in and enjoy the rest of my journey home. Luckily, the old hag and her devil spawn got off at the very end of the route, the stop after mine. So when I get up, I fall and stomp on the woman's foot with my crutch. I hope you enjoyed this. I have lots more. Old people like to forget that the seats are for those who are less able to stand, not just the elderly. Posted by user ThrowMeAway84103. Titled, Make My Canvas, you sea-banger. First, sorry about the formatting, I'm on phone. Second, sorry about my English, even though it's my first and only language. Third, I'm American and this takes place in America. Fourth, sorry about the length of this, that's what he said. Character sheet. Entitled Dad, Quiet Wife. C1 and 2 are the offsprings, 15-ish and 13-ish respectively. P1 and P2 are the 2 cops, and me, yours truly. Background information. So, I work on boats during the summer, making or repairing the canvas coverings for them. Some of the coverings are just fabric, some also have the plexiglass panels sewn into them. Patching the fabric, zippers and Velcro can normally be done in an hour per panel. Doing glass replacement takes a few hours per panel. Creating a fabric-only cover from scratch can take a day per panel. Doing a glass cover can take 2 or more days per panel. This is just the sewing part, not accounting for the time it takes to take measurements and create a template, or waiting for specialty materials to arrive. Time-consuming work, but it pays enough for college tuition and costs of living during the school year. Also, most of my work is acquired by word of mouth. People see me in a marina attaching canvas to a boat, or customers recommend me to their friends. As a one-man operation, I have quite a lot of work, even without any proper advertising or retail location, to the point where my wait times can be up to 6 weeks. So, to ensure that no clients wait longer than another, I require a 50% deposit prior to starting the work. The deposit gets them a spot in line, and the rest of the payment comes when I deliver the canvas. Now to the story. So, about a year ago, pre-COVID, on a warm summer Wednesday night, I was outfitting one of my clients with a full rear enclosure for their 65-foot boat, 9 glass panels, the most expensive plexiglass, the thickest canvas I could find, etc. All round, I made ballpark $11,000, including the cost of materials. It's the piece I'm most proud of, out of all of my work. As I was leaving, my client mentioned that someone came asking about getting some work done on their canvas, and they recommended me, and told them I'd stop by on my way out. I thought, well, why not? I'm already here, and it should take too long, right? So I went over, introduced myself and all that, and asked about the work they wanted done. C1, 2, and Quiet Wife were quietly talking amongst themselves on the back deck, as I spoke to Entitled Dad. I talked about my work, and pointed some of my other clients in the marina to show him the quality. He says, "Wow, your canvas is fantastic. How much would it cost to redo the back deck and flybridge, which is the top deck enclosure?" Well, if you want me to make a new canvas from scratch and not try and repair your old stuff, it'll probably be like $900 to $1,100 per panel, depending on the material. So for 15 panels, around $15,000-ish? 15,000? That's a third the price of my boat. Well, you could go with a cheaper glass that isn't perfectly ridged, but it wouldn't look as nice or last as long. The Entitled Dad goes and speaks with his wife briefly before returning. He says, "We'll do the more expensive stuff, since we want it to last. We'll leave it on Sunday to go on a family trip for a week, so you'll need to be done by Saturday." I stand there for 15 seconds trying to process what he just asked me to do in such little time. I say, "Okay, so there's currently a 3-week-long wait list, and in order to get in line, I'll need a 50% deposit after the..." What kind of criminal operation is this? Trying to extort me for 50% and then make me wait a month? Are you trying to starve my kids? I won't pay you a penny until I get my canvas. Look man, I'm not getting into this. 50% is standard practice, and even if there wasn't a waiting list, it would take 3 to 4 weeks to do all of your canvas. 50% is not standard practice, and I will not sit around for 2 months for you to do my canvas. I will have it by Saturday. You know what? I'm good actually. You keep the money and find someone else. Entitled Dad did not take this well, as you might imagine. He proceeded to screech his lungs off incoherently at Quiet Wife until she went inside the cabin with the kids and slammed the door on him. Meanwhile, a couple people started wandering over to the scene whilst I tried to walk away. Entitled Dad, of course, noticed me trying to leave and says, "Hey, OP, get back here and make my canvas, you sea-banger." Entitled Dad proceeds to run past me, standing in my way, trying to stop me from leaving. He continues his screaming tirade about how I have to make his canvas for him, how I'm discriminating against him, etc. A fairly sizable crowd has now formed, mostly the live abroad folks, people who live on their boats as their primary residence, who all know me pretty well. Not wanting any more confrontation, I again try to leave, just trying to slip past Entitled Dad. Entitled Dad takes this as a slight against himself, I guess, and shoves me backwards while he goes on about how he's going to beat me to a pulp. I almost fell in the water, but I managed to catch one of the mooring lines holding the boat next to me. I should note that I'm fairly small, as being Asian normally entails, about 5'6" and around 120 pounds. Entitled Dad was a head taller and probably plus 50 pounds more. I'm also pretty sure someone called the cops at this point, as Entitled Dad continued to yell about kicking my ass. I was tired after a long day of working, and I really wasn't in the mood for this. So when Entitled Dad came running at me head on, I brought my knee up, nailed him in the tenders, and just continued walking out to my car. Got in my car, cried a little, and just waited for the cops. Once they arrived, I told them what happened, and we walked out to the docks. Entitled Dad was curled up on the ground, being a drama queen, and droning on about how I nearly killed him. And he says, "Thank God you're here, officers. Arrest that guy. He just tried to kill me and steal my boat." Police 1 got Entitled Dad's statement, and then went around taking statements from a few of the witnesses, while Police 2 tried to keep Entitled Dad from being any more melodramatic. Police 1 came back to me, asking me if I wanted to press charges, which I most certainly did. Entitled Dad sees Police 1 walking over to him and says, "Yes, officer, I want to press charges." He says, "Too bad. You're under arrest for assault and for making false statements to an officer." Police 2 then says, "Please shut up now, for everyone's sake." They let him off with probation, but he's since moved his boat to another marina, hopefully far away. If y'all want to hear any more stories about crazy boat people, let me know. Posted by user Tree Branches, titled, "Entitled Soccer Mum Demands I Wake Up Everybody in College Dorm because her daughter needs to do laundry." This happened in late 2015 on my college campus. Cast are me, first-time resident assistant in co-ed upperclassmen dorm building, EK, bitchy resident, sophomore on women's soccer team, ESM, entitled soccer mum, EK's mother, GA, grad assistant, my direct supervisor with res life. For context, for those who aren't familiar, RAs are college students who are responsible for dealing with issues their fellow resident students experience in the dorms. We enforce university policies, generally to try to keep the peace and keep everybody safe and healthy. A group of 4 girls on the soccer team lived catty-corner to me, across the hall, down one room. They threw loud parties every week, and their guests often trashed our floor, as well as threw drinks on my door, ripped down my flyers, etc. I was incredibly chill, and at most, broke up their parties after issuing 2 warnings when I could hear them playing beer pong through my own closed doors with headphones in. Never really called in campus security because I didn't want to be petty or make enemies, and cause, I had a pretty wild party life on the down low and didn't want to lose my job and free housing. And thankfully, karmic justice was delivered. I got a text from Entitled Kid one day saying she saw a dead bug in her room. She sent me a picture, and I suspected it was a bed bug. I'd had them before in my own home, so I knew. I immediately reported it to the Res Life director, and fumigation was scheduled for the next day. This meant that Entitled Kid's whole suite had to clear out for 3 days, as well as the residents across from, next to, above, and beneath them. My roommates and I got to stay put. Blech. They were also advised to deep clean their rooms, wash all textiles in hot water, etc. I break the news to Entitled Kid and her roommates in a group chat, and crap immediately hits the fan. Not half an hour later, my supervisor, GA, a super cool, mild-mannered, level-headed guy who just wanted to finish grad school and help college students, knocks on my door asking me to help out with the situation. Entitled Kid's mother, ESM, is raising hell in her daughter's room. She's fuming about having to drive out in the middle of the night, 10 p.m.-ish, she lives in the next town over, like 15 minutes away, to help her daughter clear out of these disgusting, squalid conditions. They have the door propped open so they can schlep all the personal belongings into the hallway and out to their cars. ESM is speaking very loudly and it echoes in the hallway and stairwell, disturbing the hell out of anybody in a 2-room radius. She goes on and on about being a social worker and knowing how bed bugs work and how horribly inconvenient and traumatic this whole situation was for her and her kid. And this couldn't have come at a worse time because the girls have a game tomorrow and they need their rest. In the midst of all of this, GA and I just stand by to show support and presence as university employees. We let ESM know that we're sorry for this massive inconvenience and happy to help with whatever we can to make this easier. But a lot of this is out of our control. At one point in her tirade, ESM pitches a fit about how all of entitled kids' bedding and clothing needed to be washed to prevent the spread of bed bugs. Imagine her displeasure that the 2 washing machines on our floor are currently occupied. She's saying, "Why are people doing laundry at this hour? I need these machines." Well, people keep different schedules. I'm sure the person will come back for their clothes when the cycle is done. You're welcome to use the washers when they're empty. Timer showed that there were maybe 15-ish minutes left. No, these need to be washed immediately in hot water. Bugs are living in my baby's room. I'm sorry, ma'am. The machines on this floor are all full. We can always try going to another floor's laundry room and seeing if they have open machines. It's not like it was a long trip either. At most, she had to walk 30 feet to the elevator, go up 1 floor, and walk another 30 feet to the closest next laundry room. Take their crap out. I don't care if the cycle isn't done. I need to wash these clothes now. She has a game tomorrow. I can't just touch someone else's clothes like that, but I can see if I can find who's doing laundry and ask them to take it out. In the meantime, I'll put an out-of-order sign on the door, so you can have full access when the machines are empty, okay? Go find them and get their crap out of the washer. Do you know how much I pay in tuition? I should have exclusive access in this emergency, and I better not have to pay for your laundry. Yep, I do. It's not a cheap school, but laundry is included in room and board, so it won't cost anything extra. Feel free to use whatever is available. Let me go find whose clothes are in the wash now. I reluctantly knocked on every damn door in my hall at 11 p.m. on a weeknight, sheepishly asking, "Hey, is anybody here doing laundry? A parent needs the machines ASAP." A lot of people didn't even bother opening the door. Those who did quite crankily said, "Nobody's doing laundry," and closed the door in my face. I reported these findings back to ESM, who did not take this well, as she yells, "They have a game tomorrow. Doesn't anybody understand? I need these machines." I'm sorry, but I cannot and will not remove someone else's wet clothes from the machines, and I cannot allow you to do it either. But I checked the 3rd floor, and their laundry room is empty if you want to go take everything up there. ESM threw a look at GA, likely expecting him to override my statement and pitch some poor kid stuff on the floor. And he says, "OP is right, ma'am. We can't do anything about the taken washers, but you can use any laundry room in the building. Every floor has at least 2 washers and dryers, and it's late, so most machines should be free. OP, can you get some of the extra detergent from the duty booth, please?" I happily oblige, grateful to leave this awful woman's presence for 5 minutes. ESM huffed out a fake-sounding "thanks," and ultimately accepted that we'd done as much as we could. She was much more preoccupied hauling all of her daughter's stuff out in industrial garbage bags. I gave her a couple of Tide Pod samples as a consolation prize and retreated down the hall to my room. The next day, I ran into GA on campus, and he thanked me for handling everything so well, and apologized for that woman being so crazy. I said, "Honestly, I'm not even mad. Those bitches got bed bugs and I don't even have to move out of my room. Karma, if I've ever seen it." We shared a laugh, the building got sprayed for bugs, and nobody wanted to party in a bed bug room for the rest of the semester. Smiley face. Posted by user BritLitChick, titled, "Neighbors using my driveway when I'm away and mad when I come back." I was redirected here from Am I the A-hole, saying I might get better advice here. My family has a home that we regularly go to for lawn upkeep and checking the mail, and occasional overnight stays, but nobody lives in actively. My next door neighbor has decided this means her and her children have free use of my driveway. Her kids will play and draw in chalk on my driveway, which wouldn't inherently bother me if my neighbor had asked one of the many times they've seen me or my family over there. The recent incident that has really wanted to make me ask them to stop using my driveway is because I went over to the house to spray weed killer on the driveway and saw a bike laying there. The neighbors were outside, and instead of getting up and moving the bike so I could pull into my driveway, they just stared at me and watched me have to park on the street. I ended up having to move the bike myself when I went to spray. The mum then started yelling loud enough for me to hear while I was spraying that her kids had to go back inside because I was spraying the driveway. I was annoyed, but just let it go because I wanted to spray and leave. When I returned a few days later to check on the weeds, I noticed the strip of them that went down the middle of our driveway was mysteriously still green and the rest were dead. I believe that my neighbors poured water on the middle part to wash it away. This also isn't the first time items have been left in my driveway and the neighbor's not apologizing. She usually goes inside and tells her daughter, who's like 5, to apologize to me. I'm tired of being made to feel like I'm a bad person for coming to my own property. First, send them a letter using certified mail. Inform them that they are not welcome on your property and sign it. Keep a copy and the returned receipt. Second, put up no trespassing signs on your property. This may seem like an a-hole thing to do, but you are ignoring a major problem. In the US, ignore me if I'm wrong on country, you are liable for any accidents that happen on your property. Let's say kid put one of those plants with weed killer in their mouth. Their parents then can sue you for putting out poison when their child was allowed on your property. If you had a pool and a child fell in and drowned, same thing. Letting anyone on your property without your knowledge and approval is very dangerous, and you need to have evidence that you did not give them permission and that they were injured while trespassing. Also, set up a ring or a wireless camera just in case. Outdoor cameras on a mostly vacant property are always a good idea. We are in the US. Honestly, we had no idea we had to prove basically we didn't give permission. We figured it would be on the other side having to prove we did give permission. Nope. You have technically given your unspoken permission because you know they are on your property and you haven't said anything. Posted by user MajesticMan713, titled Chinese School LOL. So my family owns a Chinese school in Canada, after school curricula, no name for privacy reasons. And it's still going on, but this story happened about 5 years ago. So I'm minding my own business, being the 8-year-old I was at the time. I was as innocent as a rock. But I know when something bad is going to happen and I'm ready to stop it. So suddenly, while playing some lonely Minecraft on my iPad at the school, until this random parent comes in with her 10-year-old kid. Let's call them Karen and Little Rock. Note that my parents were out at this time buying groceries, and they left telling me that all the parents had to wait until they came back. So, I told them in Chinese, and the conversation went like this. 你好, ma'am. My parents are out at this time, but you can wait in this waiting room for now. No, where are they? I bet you aren't even their kid. Notice that I'm 8, against a 35-year-old adult and her 10-year-old kid. I'm starting to panic. Hard. 对不起, ma'am. But I am their kid, and you can't change that. Please wait here until they come back. No. You're not their son, and I know that for a fact. You're gonna tell me where they are, and now. This is where I hear the door open, and I know that my parents have come back. The Karen notices this as well, and immediately turns over there to talk to them, and says, Hello, this kid has been mean to me and also claims to be your kid. Please kick him out of the building. The dad, with visible confusion, says, Ma'am, this is my kid. Karen realized she screwed up. So yeah, after that, we never heard about her. She immediately left the building. I enjoyed the snacks and Minecraft, winky face. Sorry for this being really short, but this is all I have. Until next time, peace. Edit, I'ma just address this real quick. I know most people are having a quick discussion about my age. Let me just say that again, It's not illegal to leave a child at a private place with like 50 adults watching you and tons of witnesses. Also, thank you all for all the support. Posted by user NeoPrenajoe, titled, Entitled Mum Calls Me Satanistic for Having Visible Scars and Ruining Her Son's Daily Walks. I, 15 female, have scars on my arms. They are fully healed, but are still very prevalent. When I go for runs in trails, I often run in t-shirts or tank tops because I live in an objectively warm environment. The trails where I live are very wide and have new one-way rules, so we can keep distance appropriately. Therefore, they remained open. I never really thought much of it. I was always just living my life. I wasn't ever blind to the stares people gave me, and I'd be lying if I said it didn't hurt me. One day I was there, at the same time of day as I always am. I paused for a minute to tie my shoe, and just as I was about to continue my morning run, a lady approaches me. I recognize her, and recall that I've seen her a couple of times before with a little boy. I could clearly remember her covering her son's eyes while giving me a death stare. I always ignored it. She proceeded to say something along the lines of, "You're that tramp that took morning walks away from my son." I was sincerely confused, so I asked her what she meant by that. She said that my scars are disgusting and she didn't want her son to be exposed to such satanistic ways. She expressed her anger towards me for making her feel like she could no longer take her little boy with her. While trying to back up, she was getting much too close to me, not keeping her distance. I said that she was the one endangering her son if she keeps coming too close to strangers who could potentially be carriers. This obviously ticked her off, and she was trying to tell me I may never come back here again. I told her that I will continue to run at 8 in the morning every day with my arms showing, and if she doesn't like it, she can come here with her son at a different time and start it up the rest of my run. Posted by user BeardedAlien013, titled, Why Aren't You Wearing a Mask? Hear me out, my fellow people. I'm working from home, but my wife still has to go to her office to attend to her patients. Whenever she needs to go, I drive her there. Same happens when she's done there, I'll pick her up and drive her home. We are social distancing and are not going out whatsoever, and once a week I'll clean my car inside and out. Today, I left her there and was driving back to my house. When I'm driving and won't get out of the car, I won't wear my mask, even though I carry it with me. Let me emphasize this. When I'm driving my car, nobody but my wife gets in my car, okay? I'm at a red light and all is good. All of a sudden, I hear a tap on my windows. I roll it down just a few millimeters so I can hear her, and our star Karen starts her rant. I want to point out when she came to talk to me, her mask wasn't covering her nose and mouth. She says, "Why aren't you wearing a mask?" What? Why aren't you wearing a fudging mask? You're setting a bad example to my kids. I'm in my car at a red light with my windows closed and air conditioner on. I don't care, a-hole. I see your mask. Put it on now. You're setting a bad example to a child. That's when she points to her child on the sidewalk. Yes, she left a child unattended just to scream at me. The light turns green and I start to drive away. She kept screaming and threw a water bottle on my car. I decided to ignore and move on. I don't think I'm wrong about this. Not wearing a mask inside of a car that I clean at least once a week, and I'm the only one with access to it. Posted by user ForSureGirl, titled, Entitled Parent Complains About Paying for Babysitting. Okay, so I just remembered this glorious story from my time as a coach at my local sports club. Once a year, we would have a giant sleepover with kids in our gym. Imagine 40 to 50 kids ages 6 to 12 with 1 or 2 adults coaches and a couple of coaches who were teenagers. I was one of the later ones as I was 16 at the time. The kids would come on a Saturday at around 11 a.m. and we would do all kinds of fun sports and other activities with them inside the gym as well as outside. We would do some barbecue for dinner and provide breakfast on Sunday morning as well. At around 11 a.m. on Sunday, the parents would pick up their kids. None of the coaches were getting paid, but we loved to do it for free. The whole thing would cost the parents €4. With that money, we would get bread, cereal, milk, butter, jam, and other stuff for the breakfast, as well as some drinks like water and juice, and the stuff for the barbecue, sausages, etc. Additionally, we would ask the parents to provide some salad, cake, muffins, or anything else for lunch, afternoon snack, or dinner. We had a lot of parents who complained about preparing food after they already paid €4. A lot of times we had to remind people that we're babysitting their kids for a whole day for free. But this Karen took the cake. When she dropped her kid on Saturday, I asked her for the €4 because she hadn't paid them yet. She says, "I don't have any money right now, I'll give it to you tomorrow," while holding her wallet in her hand. Me, looking straight at her wallet, say, "You really trying to tell me that there isn't even €1 in that wallet?" Karen, trying to hide her wallet behind her back, says, "No, there isn't. Either you pay now at least €1 or you're going to take your kid home. I'm not playing that game. I'm not going to pay for his food out of my pocket." Karen says angrily, "I'm already paying for this sport club membership. €11 per month, by the way. So that should be enough. Be careful how you talk to me, young lady. I am paying you right now." Excuse me, what? I'm not getting paid for this weekend. I'm volunteering here right now because I like working with the kids. Well then, why do you want my money if you like working with the kids? Where's the problem if you're volunteering? Someone has to pay for the food he's going to eat, and that's not going to be me. And let me guess, you also didn't provide any salad, did you? You already want money from me. Why should I additionally prepare food for this? Because you only pay €4. One of the adult coaches hears what's going on and comes over and says, "Karen, pay up. I have had enough of your yelling. Your payments for the membership are always late, and now you try to argue about €4? I know your family, and know that you have €4 to pay. As far as I remember, your husband works a pretty nice management position, doesn't he?" Karen gets red in the face, I guess out of embarrassment, and says, "Whatever." She opens her wallet and throws 4 €1 coins at me. She then stomps off. Her son, by the way, just stood there and looked very embarrassed. He's a great kid and doesn't deserve this mum. Gladly, we also had some really great parents who were so grateful that we would take care of their kids for free. We often got some extra gifts from them, like a pack of energy drinks. We often had to stay up all night, some candy, or even got offered money. Posted by user Angry Carbs, titled, "I saw a woman assault a 4-year-old for splashing in her pond, but she didn't know the father was right behind her. On Saturday, I took my spouse and daughter on a little hike in Shenandoah National Forest now that they've opened again. We chose a small path that runs down next to the creek, with little pools of water and streams the kids love to play in. We got to a small pool of water, and my daughter wanted to play, so we stayed there for a bit. A few minutes after we got there, a German woman arrived at the spot with 2 kids, probably around 6 and 8 years old. She was super demanding to them, "Don't touch that, don't get wet," etc. Her interactions were just weird. After a bit, an Indian family arrived with 4 small children. Immediately, the German mother became territorial over this little pool of water and yelled at the Indian man's kids, "Stop splashing! Go over away from us! We were here first!" The kids looked at her and had that look on their faces that kids get when they don't know what to do. They sort of just froze. After a minute or so, the smallest child, about 4, began playing again. The German woman became enraged and yelled, "Stop splashing water!" She turned to her 6-year-old son and told him, "Go splash those kids and show them this is our water to play in." Her poor kid looked at her and quietly told her that he wanted to go. The German woman then stood up, went right over to the 4-year-old kid and splashed him hard with 2 hands, completely soaking him while yelling, "How you like it?" The force was so strong that the child fell over in the water. Immediately, and seemingly out of nowhere, the child's father sprinted right up to the German woman and yelled, "You do not assault a child, whether your own or others. How dare you splash my child like that?" The German woman didn't back down, and told him that he should be a better father by watching his children more closely, and that her kids were there first. The Indian man said, "It doesn't matter what your reasoning is. Only crazy adults think that they can assault a small child and knock them over. Don't you hear yourself? You sound insane. I'm reporting you immediately. How could you think that your actions are justified?" At this point, I was able to turn my camera on and film the end of the confrontation. She backed off and packed her things, but still kept her mouth running at the Indian man. He then stopped giving her attention and just ignored her with the best dismissive hand I've ever seen. We were shocked that such an interaction would happen over something so petty, but we were glad that the mother got put in her place. I just felt so bad for her son and daughter, who, even at their young age, were so embarrassed by their mother's actions. Posted by user TarfCarMusic, titled, "My mum expects me and guilt trips me to come over to her house multiple times a week. I'm 25. For the record, I've moved out and live with my girlfriend. My mother is constantly smothering me and making me feel bad about not wanting to go over to her house every single week. She calls me and yells at me over the phone, guilt trips me, etc. Sometimes I just want to chill at my own place and not have to do anything social. I tried talking to her about how I feel, and she just says that I'm a bad son and I should feel ashamed for how I treat her. I just don't know what to do. It's like this for my brother too, and the guilt tripping just gives me fudging anxiety. I really can't do it anymore. I'm not obligated to do anything I don't want to, and I know that, but I just wish she would get it. Sorry if this is a rambling post, but I just wanted somewhere to vent, and if you read this far, thanks for reading. I love you." Edit. Damn, this really took off. Thank you all for the comments, advice, and links to support groups. This has been very helpful. I am working with my brother on laying down some ground rules, and hopefully this will help her understand what she's doing. I appreciate this sub for everything. Posted by user Meaworm, titled, "Mom robs me the joy of telling my husband he's going to be a dad. My mother was a colourful, undiagnosed bipolar person, which makes my upbringing extremely interesting. I definitely describe her as crazy, but nonetheless, my mum. I loved her, and we were very close. This takes place shortly after my husband and I were married and started trying to get pregnant. Although we were still young, 21 and 24, we had just gotten married, and I was a bit eager to get started with our large family plans. My husband was a little nervous, so we waited a whopping 4 months before trying. The baby-making fun starts, and I, the planner, make an appointment for my obgyn to get started on prenatals. While waiting for the appointment, my period does not make an appearance. I'm thinking, hopefully the doctor will tell us we're already pregnant. I share this with my mother, and she's just as excited as I am. I should note, my husband is a very nonchalant man. It sometimes drives me crazy. I couldn't wait to be able to tell him we're pregnant so I could see the look on his face. On Wednesday, the doctor tells me that the pregnancy test is negative, but feel free to take another test next week as it's still early in the cycle, gives me some prenatals, and sends me on my way. Bugger. Friday, I get a call from my mum. She says, "I had a dream about fish. Fish! OP, fish!" I'm like, okay, you want me to make you some fish? What? No, do you know what this means? You want to go to the beach. Stop playing games. It means somebody is pregnant. Mum, I just took a test. The doctor said no. This goes on for a second and ends with my mother insisting that I come over to her house, which I did. She has several pregnancy tests waiting for me, along with apple juice and bottles of water. I didn't really want to take another pregnancy test. I wanted to wait at least a week before testing again like my doctor suggested. Nope, my mum was having none of it. I reluctantly pee on a stick and lo and behold, positive. Before I could even process the results, my mum jumped up dancing. She made up a song and everything. "We're having a baby? A baby? A baby! We're having a baby. It's my baby, my grandbaby." On and on it goes, in a different voice and tone each time. Next thing I know, I hear my husband's voice on the speakerphone, and she's yelling at the top of her lungs. "It's 2 lines!" Huh? What's going on? 2 lines! 2 pink lines! I don't understand what's going on. Is OP okay? Where's OP? I'm here, everything. What do you mean you're confused? It's 2 lines. OP? A baby, we're having a baby. OP, I thought it was negative. No, I dreamed about fish. We're having a baby, that doctor don't know crap. Fish? What? Ugh, why can't you be excited? She hangs up on him, then goes on a rant about who the hell knows what. I was too busy trying to get my husband back on the phone to explain things. Needless to say, this was not what I had in mind. Not only did I not get to plan a clever way to let him know that he was going to be a dad, I also didn't get to see his face upon hearing the news. Instead, I got to explain foolishness from my mum that ended with an, "Oh, okay," sideways upside down smile. I never got that moment, even with my other children. Apparently, my husband is enemy number 1 when I'm pregnant, so he knows I'm pregnant before I do. It starts with me doing something ridiculously mean, and he looks at me and says, "You're pregnant." And he's right, lol. Edit. Somehow I forgot to add, when I confront her about telling him before I could, she yells at me about how it's her baby too, and she has the right to tell her son-in-law about what's going on with our baby. Second edit. For clarification, this was 17 years ago. Many years after this, she was diagnosed with being bipolar after a mental breakdown. She ended up living with me while I was pregnant with my 3rd child. I learned how to deal with her and had clear boundaries with my mum. She has since passed away from cancer. R.I.P. OP's mum. She had good intentions, she will be missed, even if she was an entitled mother. It kind of sucks that it was laid down just like that. Oh my god, it's just, then she died from cancer. That sucks, I'm sorry. Jesus. Posted by user Milkbone. Titled, "Entitled Mother Accuses My Cross-Country Running Coach of Pedophilia and Bans the Girls Team from Wearing Proper Running Equipment." Brad was a simple kid. Lived a simple life as far as I knew. He was on the junior varsity team his freshman year of high school, never stirred too many waves, never got out and about, and stuck with his close friends. Introvert through and through, or so I thought. I was a senior at the time, and on the varsity team, so we never spoke more than a couple words, and I knew very little, if anything at all, about his life at home. However, I witnessed this story unfold in all of its horrifying glory. Dear readers, please take a seat or lie down for what you're about to read. Or don't. I don't care. I simply want to set the mood. Let us begin. This girls' cross-country team was somewhat segregated from the boys' team, and we rarely ran together during these practices, adventuring far from the track. This particular run was an 8-mile easy run during the hot and dry summer months of Colorado. Please keep in mind I say easy run in terms of the type of workout. In no way do I say this to be pretentious. Anyways, my friends and I arrived back at the parking lot, sweaty, shirtless, and in the shortest shorts socially acceptable. Hey, that's hot. Keep in mind that I am in fact a male. My point still stands. The girls' team arrived shortly thereafter, similar style shorts and wearing sports bras. This is not a strange occurrence as it is brutally hot outside and we just ran up and down the side of a mountain. The JV team had finished their run slightly before us as their distance was different. I saw my coach talking to the various runners, giving advice, water congratulations, and other typical coach things. However, one new sight met my eyes as I jogged into the parking lot. The scorching bright light of a completely silver and polished Chevy Suburban. I felt my photoreceptors recede several millimeters as I shielded my eyes from this wicked neutron star parked outside the dirty brick public restroom whose best days were most certainly long ago. Several minutes later, as my retinas begin to adapt to the second sun, out steps Karen, wearing a red pantsuit, a tan sun hat the size of a professional frying pan, and the most atrociously clashing purple high-top Converse shoes. She hones in on the girls' team immediately as they file into the parking lot, undoubtedly shielding their eyes. "What in God's name do you think you're doing?" shouts Karen in a shrill voice, as she stomps over to the now recovering girls' team. There comes a murmur of replies, none of which were loud enough to understand, but certainly loud enough to make out a general sense of confusion. "You're practically naked. There are boys all around here. You don't need to act like tramps in order to run. Put something on, now, all of you," she shouts, clapping her hands, this time shouting loud enough for the coach to hear. I imagine Brad is cowering somewhere at this point, knowing what is to come. However, none of us knew that this was his mother at the time. My friends and I proceed closer, but are completely ignored by the Red Witch. My coach walks over and says, "Is there some sort of problem I can help you with? You don't need to talk to them that way." Several girls begin putting on shirts and sweatpants, but mostly don't seem to care. Yes, there is a problem. These girls are revealing themselves, and my son is here and able to see them. I don't need him, nor any of the children for that matter, to see so much skin. It gives off the wrong impression," she says, seeming smug and justified. "You can't speak for the other athletes, but who's your son? We can see if he minds," my coach says. "My son's name is Brad, and yes, actually, I can speak for the other children. I'm a member of the PTA. Plus, I don't need my son's eyes perverted by these, spicy word. For those of you unaware, the PTA is the Parent-Teacher Association, which links parents and school faculty together in an effort to do what's best for the students. "Oi mate, you need to step back. You have no right to call these girls she cuts him off. "I have every right as a mother, a PTA member, and a taxpayer. These girls are practically asking for sex, and no one this young is allowed to do that, and you are a disgusting old man for allowing this behavior." At this point, I'm getting a headache. Her voice has been increasing in pitch since the first word uttered from her blubbery mouth. "Look mate, I don't have a say in the matter, and neither do you. If you don't leave now, I will be calling the police. I don't want—" She cuts him off again. "The police? You're the pedophile, Tyrone." My coach is not named Tyrone. This was supposed to be a derogatory reference to the fact that he is black. As a side note, I feel as if my ears are bleeding listening to this entitled dog whistle. After this, however, my coach moves a safe distance to let off some steam. I'm confident I could see wisps of fiery rage floating from his forehead into the sky above. After several seconds, he pulls out his phone, takes a picture of her license plate and says, "I'm calling the police." "You do that, hun," she sneers, baring her filthy teeth, undoubtedly stained from years of smoking and drinking. "Brad, let's go and cover your ears. You don't need these skanks anywhere near you." She hisses that last few words as she literally climbs into the Suburban. Climb is a generous term for the flailing, huffing, and puffing that occurred. Imagine a grape being aggressively stuffed through the hole of a keychain loop. Brad slinks into the back seat, mouthing the word, "sorry," as he slides shyly past us. The car erupts into a roar and belches forth rocks and dust as Karen reverses from her 2 parking spots and barrels down the road, seemingly doubling the speed limit. This story does not end happily, unfortunately. The next day we learn that the girls' team must wear shorts that reach at least the top of the knee and t-shirts with no shoulders exposed. They were forbidden from removing their shirts during runs, and infractions to this policy would be met with suspension and an end to their season. The boys' team received no such policy, and while we wore shirts and shorts out of sympathy, it was too hot to keep them on during the runs. Furthermore, our coach was put on leave for investigation, but returned at the end of the summer. The cross-country team's budget was slashed, and our new varsity uniforms were returned. Karen, I'm sure, still drives her disco ball SUV and terrorizes the PTA into submission. I have never been so angry in my life. The story ends here, but for those of you interested, Brad didn't show up to practices for several weeks. However, we found out from his friends that he was still training on his own. When he did show up again, we accepted him and had a good laugh. I know at one point his mother pressed the coach to have him moved up to varsity despite him being nowhere near fast enough. She claimed, "The competition will make him improve." Dear readers, thank you for your time. Posted by user LizzieB66, titled, "You don't have kids to look after you in your old age." I'm coming to terms with the fact that my father's behavior was not necessarily normal. So I thought that I'd share one of the last things that he did that I'm still trying to process. My mum passed in February 2014 after a nasty year of illness. She was 82, I was 48, a late baby. My father's behavior during my mum's final years had got more and more demanding. 2 years earlier, my husband had offered for them to sell their house and go halves with us on a place together so that they could have more support. But my father threw a tantrum that he was not going to leave his friends and favorite hospital to live near our jobs. We were talking a move of 70 miles to a better neighborhood where houses cost much less and would have freed up a significant amount of capital for them to treat themselves with, and was near a major teaching hospital, specializing in all my father's perceived ailments. Husband was so appalled by father's behavior that the subject was never raised again. So, mum passes away. Dad hasn't spoken to me for the 2 months before she died, as I wouldn't come down and take him out for day trips, leaving my mother alone in the house to fend for herself. I get a call from him, and here is the entitled parent issue to beat all of his previous ones. He tells me, doesn't ask, that he can't look after himself and that he isn't going to waste money on carers, so he needs me to come and stay with him. For how long, I ask. Permanently is the answer. I can't do that. I have a husband, 2 cats, and a full-time job, along with other commitments. My father's answer? If you think we had you because we wanted you, you have another thing coming. The youngest child is supposed to step up and look after their parents when they are needed. But Dad, I can't leave my husband to stay with you. Dad then told me that it wasn't a choice. It was my duty as his youngest child. His health was more important than my marriage, and I'd better think carefully about what I did next, as it would affect my relationship with him. I put the phone down on him. He called back twice, and I told him no, and each time he swore and abused me. On the 3rd call, my hubby answered, and being a straight-talking Aussie, told him a few home truths. That was mid-Feb 2014. In October, on my birthday, he changed his will and wrote all of his children and grandchildren out of his will except my niece and her elder sister, who had Windles back in after an estrangement of over 15 years. He passed away the following June when we found out he had changed his will, and my niece had known for months. I still have dreams about how he told me that I'd only been born as an insurance policy for his care in old age. Really gives your life value. Posted by user Professor Spitfire, titled, "Entitled Mother Tells Kid to Climb Tree that he was just expressly forbidden to climb. Then, karma hits." Not nearly as bad as some of the stories I've read on here, but even so, this experience from yesterday features one of the most entitled parents I've encountered in the wild. In the city where I live, there's a botanical garden. It's private property, but most of it is accessible to the public for free. In the middle of the garden there's a small cafe, and yesterday, my girlfriend, our daughter and I met up for coffee there with another couple and their daughter. Right next to our table, outdoors, there was a small tree that a bunch of children, ages approximately 4 to 8, were climbing in. We had been there for about a half an hour when a gardener or something, I don't know, it was evident from his clothes that he worked in the garden, not really sure in what respect though, came by and told the kids politely but firmly that they were not allowed to climb the trees in the garden. The trees are from all over the world, and most of them don't grow here naturally, so I imagine it would be quite expensive to replace one should it get damaged. The kids didn't seem upset about it and ran back to their respective parents. They did not all belong to the same family/party of visitors. 2 girls, aged around 4, ran back to their mother, sitting about 60 feet away, zipping wine, and the gardener went about his business. About 10 minutes later, one of the mothers approached our table with a sour look on her face, and the girls in tow, and the following dialogue ensues. Are you the ones who told my daughters she couldn't climb this tree? No, it was some guy that works here. The entitled mother, her tone a bit softer now that she realized none of us had told off her daughter, says, "Oh, I see. Well, did you see where he went?" "No, I'm afraid not." Entitled mother turns to the two girls and says, "If you want to climb here, that's fine. If they don't want children climbing the trees, they should have a playground." She then returned to her wine. Me and my company were a bit baffled, but didn't intervene, as frankly, none of us were in a mood to come between a Karen and whatever her precious kid deserved. But just 5 minutes later, one of the girls fell out of the tree and hit the ground face first with a good thud. We asked her if she was alright, but before we'd finished the question, she started wailing as if her head had split open. Luckily, she didn't fall from very high up, and was probably more startled than hurt. But even so, that's some karma if I ever saw any. Posted by user CatwomanLover34, titled, "Of Child-Free Weddings and Entitled Parents Losing Their Minds." I had posted this earlier on Child-Free and Just No Family. My fiancé and I are going to get married in a few months, and we've decided we don't want kids at the wedding. Kids are loud, they run around, they break things, and we don't want to have to deal with that on a day that we're supposed to celebrate our relationship. We've assigned the roles that are usually performed by children to our beloved pets. My dog will be the flower girl, my fiancé's dog will be the ring bearer, and my 2 cats are co-maids of honor. Our friends, boyfriend's sister, and my brothers and their partners think this is adorable. Alas, our other relatives do not share the same enthusiasm. Boyfriend's parents said they thought it was strange, and were hoping that his cousin could be the ring bearer, but they've accepted it because they want us to be happy. My parents threw a fudging fit and accused me of placing animals above children. I calmly explained to them that this was my fiancé's and my wedding, and it really wasn't their place to decide who would be a part of it. Our pets are well trained and well behaved, which is more than I can say about our relatives' kids. My parents aren't coming to my wedding because I refuse to follow a certain sexist wedding tradition, father giving away the daughter. My dad told me since I was robbing him of his moment, there was no reason for him to be there. Good fudging riddance. One of the friends I've known since childhood is a mother of 3 and was going to be one of the bridesmaids. She was horrified when she learned that my dog and cats will be in the wedding party. Surely her 3 little ill-mannered kids should have had that honor. She threatened to not come to the wedding. I made it easier for her by taking her name off the guest list. My cousin, who has 2 kids, told me, rather smugly, that she would bring her kids anyway. When she and her family were actually there, surely I won't be able to do anything about it. I told her I would have her husband, and their kids escorted out by security. That shut her up. My fiancé's friend asked him to make me replace my dog with his daughter as the flower girl. He was warned to never bring it up again. This wedding will be a special place for my fiancé and I, and we will not let other people's entitlement ruin it. Yeah, makes me question if I'm gonna have kids at my own wedding. I don't know if I will. Posted by user Wicked Cyclone 2015, titled, "Entitled Mother Claims I Stole Her Money When She Didn't Get Full Payback from a GameStop Trade-In. Here's a make-up post to apologize for my crappy post earlier today. For some backstory, I worked at a GameStop for a little over a year. Worst work experience ever, and I never want to go there again. GameStop is infamous for having crappy trade-in credits. You can pay $60 for a game and get $15 for trading it in, and it's been like this for a while. This isn't the only time somebody has complained about not getting money from their trade-in, but this was the craziest. Now on to the story. It was a Sunday afternoon, and the store was completely empty. I had swept the floor, and I was chatting with one of my co-workers when the entitled mother of the story walked in. This was the interaction. I say, "Hello, how can I help you?" "My son wants to trade in some games." "Okay, let me see them." She handed me a copy of Madden 09, Pokemon Battle Revolution for the Wii, Halo 3, and a Gran Turismo game. Madden 09 didn't work, and I got an error screen when I tested it, so I took it as defective. I ran them through the system and your total comes out to $33. That's it? Yes, ma'am. I paid over $100 for those games. I'm sorry, ma'am, but the system determines how much I give you. These are used games, and one of them didn't even work. How dare you steal from me? I'm gonna call the police and have you arrested. I was getting quite fed up with her at this point and said, you can go right ahead, but I can't give you any more money for these games. That's complete bullcrap. You millennials always trying to scam people. At this point, my manager came out. My manager was one of those people that bent over backwards for everybody, except the non-entitled ones. And they say, what seems to be the problem? Your filthy employee is stealing from me and my kid. How exactly has he stolen from you? He's trying to give me $33 for games I paid over $100 for. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll make sure you get the right amount of money for your games. The entitled mother had a smug look on her face and wholeheartedly thought that she was going to get way more money. But then, this happened. It looks like the system gave you a bit too much. Your actual total comes to $26. Sorry about that. If looks could kill. What? He says, please leave my store before I call the police. Thank you. The entitled mother grabbed her kid, who was using the demo system, and stormed out. I was completely dumbfounded and couldn't believe he just shut down the entitled mother like that. Maybe he ate a Kit Kat, I don't know. Let's just say that I had way more respect for him than I did before. Posted by user, direct accordingly. Titled, Entitled mother thought that I was faking my disability for attention and almost made my injury worse. This happened when I was 10 years old. I was playing in the local park with my 3 older brothers, Jake, John, and James, and our neighbors, Cal and Craig. We all were laughing and having fun when John had the idea to play a game on the roundabout. The game is pretty dumb and dangerous, but really fun back then. It involves 5 of us holding onto the outside poles as one of us pushed the roundabout as fast as possible. We all had to hold on for dear life, or we would get flung off. Last one holding on would win. We all ran up the roundabout and got into position. My brothers thought that it was a bad idea for me to play because I have a joint disability. Later got diagnosed with HEDS, but because there hadn't been an incident for a while, they let me play. I held on, wrapping my legs and arms around the pole, along with Cal, John, Craig, and Jake. James began pushing the roundabout really fast, and we were all screaming and shouting in excitement. For me, the screams of joy turned to screams of severe pain as my leg had dislocated around the pole. As the roundabout spun, it was slowly pulling my legs apart, and it was agony. James realized what was happening and immediately grinded the ride to a halt. Everyone was panicking as they couldn't move me, and any attempt they made it more excruciating, and I screamed louder. In a panic, James, John, and Craig told Cal and Jake to stay with me so they could run and get my dad. They did know how to fix it, but thought my dad would be able to get me off the roundabout with minimum pain. They ran off, and a crowd gathered of parents and their kids to see what was going on. The parents did try to touch me, but Jake and Cal explained that I have a disability, and the others are getting my dad who knows what to do, adding that moving me might make it worse. A lot of the parents looked very concerned, with some kids looking really confused, as I looked like I was just sitting there crying. Enter the entitled mother and her crap of a daughter, EK, maybe about 12. They approached the group and asked what was going on, and the other parents explained the situation. Entitled mother immediately said how ridiculous everyone was being, and saying that I was clearly just trying to get attention by the looks of things. Cal was sitting with me, patting my back, telling me I was going to be okay, while Jake was telling the other kids not to be mean, as they supposedly were saying the same as the entitled mother. Entitled kid then told entitled mother how she wanted to go on the roundabout. Entitled mother telling her to hold on a minute, and approached me and Cal. She began telling me to get off the roundabout, and Cal said I couldn't. He tried to explain that our siblings had gone to get my dad, but entitled mother ignored him. She told me again to get off before grabbing me and trying to yank me off. I screamed in pain again, begging her to stop, but she just responded, "Stop being overdramatic and get off." I felt an intense pain like never before in my legs, and was crying uncontrollably, trying to hold on to the pole. Entitled Mother had kept telling me to stop being a baby and stop faking it and let her little baby on. Entitled Mother pulled me with a lot of force, and I fell onto my back with my legs still around the pole. Cal started screaming for Jake, and Jake ran over and tried to tackle her, telling her, "Leave her alone." Entitled Kid then jumped in, telling Jake that I was an attention seeker, and tried hitting Jake, saying to leave her mum alone. At this point, Entitled Mother was trying to drag me, and the other parents saw my leg. Now it was visibly obvious that my leg was dislocated. The other parents jumped in and dragged Entitled Mother away from me as she was screaming, "She's faking! She isn't disabled, she's faking!" As the other parents, along with Cal, tried to put me back in my original position. Entitled Kid ran after her mum crying because Jake did end up hitting her, according to Jake. The other parents stayed with me, Cal, and Jake until my dad arrived while telling their kids to play on other equipment. Entitled Mother was still screaming and shouting about how we are attention seekers, while Entitled Kid cried for her mum. James, John, Craig, and my dad arrived and ran over to me with my dad, gently unhooking my leg from the pole and carefully, along with the other parents, carrying me to a nearby bench. My dad told me to do the brave trick, and I started biting onto my sleeve as my dad popped my leg back into place. He thanked the other parents for their help, and they told my dad what happened to Entitled Mother. He was fuming and asked them where she was, but when he looked around, he saw Entitled Mother and Entitled Kid running out of the park. Entitled Mother must have seen my dad's face because he looked like he was out for blood. After my leg was popped in, I stopped crying and thanked everyone after calming down a bit. They all wished me well and went back to their kids. My dad carried me out of the park and took me to my mum at her work. She was a nurse, and Jake told our parents everything. They were horrified, and my mother said that if she kept doing what she was doing, she could have caused me serious injury. I never ran into Entitled Mother or Entitled Kid again. But my dad told me that if I ever saw her again to call him immediately. Posted by user Singer SC, titled, "Entitled Mum tries to take my mask to give it to her son." So, this is my first time writing one of these. I've been reading this thread for the last couple of months or so, and some of these stories seemed unbelievable to me until this happened to me today. Today, I went to an Asian grocery store that I frequent often to pick up a few things. I'm wearing some gym clothes, a hat, and a Seven Lions mask, one of my favorite DJs/artists, and here's a pic of the mask. Very cool mask, guys, very cool. I go into the store to pick up some tea and look to see if they have sauce that I've been looking for. As I'm browsing the shelves, enters this little brat who is about 10 years old. He says, "Excuse me, sir, that's a cool mask you have on." "Oh, thanks, buddy. The one you have is pretty cool too. Can I see it?" "Sure thing, man." And I turn to face him. "No, I mean, can I hold it? The design looks really cool." We're in the middle of a pandemic, so I thought maybe this kid is unaware that most people are supposed to be social distancing, and letting him hold my mask could get him and me sick. So I do my best to explain to him. "Sorry, kiddo. I can't do that because I don't want to spread my germs to you and get you sick, especially with coronavirus going around." This kid's face turns a bit red, and he turns around and says, "Whatever," as he stomps off. I kind of just shrug and continue looking for what I'm looking for, thinking that was that. But man, was I wrong. Small backstory before we continue. I'm a raver and have been going to large music festivals for the past 4.5 years. I have many masks that I have collected from virtually every festival, plus I have ones that represent my favorite DJs and artists. Since mask wearing became a thing in the pandemic, I finally get to wear these masks in public. I was actually excited. I often get questions and compliments from strangers like, "Cool mask." Or if I'm wearing an EDC one, for example, "What's EDC?" and I would explain to them what it is or who the artist is and try to expose them to the EDM/rave scene. Most people just like the designs of the mask, so these questions were kind of normal to me at this point. Anyways, back to the story. I'm continuing my search for this source I'm looking for, and I see this lady, entitled Mother, walking down the aisle from the corner of my eye. And she's like, "Hey, that's a nice mask you got there." Me, nothing thinking anything of it, just turned to her to make eye contact to be polite. "Thanks." This woman had to be in her late 30s and short. I'm not that tall. I've average height, 5'8", but she was definitely like 5'1" or 5'2". I see little brat behind her too, and I have this feeling this is her mother. At this point, I'm not sure of what she wants. She says, "So, is there any chance you can let my son hold your mask? He said that you were rude to him about it, all he wanted to do was touch it." I'm kind of shocked at this. Like, what the hell is going on? Is this really happening right now? "No, ma'am. I do not think I was being rude to your son, explaining that he cannot hold my mask because I don't want to spread my germs to him, and we're in the middle of a pandemic, you know. Well, this whole thing is a farce, and COVID isn't even real, so take the mask off and let my son hold it." Mind you, her and her son are also both wearing masks themselves, so I sigh as I'm tired from my workout and just want to get things that I need and go home. I say, "Look, I'm not taking my mask off, and I'm not letting your son hold it either." "Fine, I'll buy it from you. I'll give you $5 for it." "Sorry, not for sale. They don't sell these anymore, and these were sold for more than $5. She starts getting louder and more demanding. "Well, that's stupid. Who would spend $5 on a mask? Just let my son hold your mask. You don't need it anyways. COVID isn't real." "I already said no, lady. Now just leave me alone." I turn to walk away, heading to go check out, and I hear the little brat chime in at this point. "Mum, I want that mask so bad. Can you please get me one?" "I'm trying, sweetie, but this a-hole won't let me buy it." I stop and turn around again. "Oh, so I'm the a-hole? I'm not the one harassing people because you have a spoiled brat due to your bad parenting. If anything, you two are being a-holes." I see this woman's face turn red, and she marches up to me and reaches out and tries to rip my mask off my face. I block and smack her hand/arm away from my face really hard. I know and have been practicing martial arts since I was a kid. I say, "WTF are you doing? Try that again and I will use force to stop you," I say in a very commanding voice. At this point, people are coming over to aisle to see what is going on. And she says, "You assaulted me! Somebody call the police!" she shrieks out. "What? You tried to grab at my face to take my mask for your stupid son. I told you to leave me alone. Give me the mask or I'll press charges. You don't need the mask anyways." At this point, the manager/owner of the store steps in. She had been standing there and watching this happen the whole time from the monitor. And they say, "All right, that's enough. Ma'am, you and your son need to leave." He assaulted me. He should be leaving, and you should be calling the cops." "No, I've watched you harass this young man this whole time. Now leave." "No, I didn't do anything wrong. He hit my arm. I'm gonna call the cops, get him arrested, and this store closed down because you, are so unsanitary." Mine, the owners, and many customers of the eyes widen. We're both Asian, and most of the customers are Asian. The owner pulls her phone out and takes the woman's picture. Entitled Mother gets even angrier when she realizes what the owner did, and says, "I did not give you permission to do that. Delete it right now, or I will really call the police and have you both arrested," she demanded. "Go ahead and call the police. I'll just show them the CCTV cameras, and there are plenty of witnesses around to defend this young man. You were harassing him, you tried to take his mask off of his face. If anything, you will go to jail. Want to try your luck?" Entitled Mother stops and goes silent, now noticing the crowd in and around the aisle. She grabs her son by the arm and starts walking toward the door. "Let's go, sweetie. I'm telling the health department about this crap hole, and you will be out of business by next week. Don't come back. You are banned from this store." The owner shouts out as she walks out and leaves. I thank the owner for helping me out there. She offers to give me the items I have in my hands for free, but I decline. I would rather support her business and buy them, especially since she stood up for me. Nothing happened after that. No cops came and everything was back to normal. I check out after finding the source that I was looking for and left to go home. Edit. For those asking what kind of sauce I was looking for, it was a pad thai sauce that is usually sold out every time I go there, and they always take a while to restock. We have one store here, so every time I go to get tea, fresh basil, or lime leaves, I'll always check to see if they have it. Posted by user Hi Panico. Titled, My parents almost starved me to death because I disrespected them. So, how do I start? Well, basically, my parents are very abusive. They always make me feel like absolute crap. They say that I'm faking my depression, even though they were present when it was diagnosed. And overall, they aren't nice people to be around. Since I started high school in 2019, I've had to go through intense bullying, and that made me develop an MDD, major depressive disorder, and an ED, eating disorder, both not self-diagnosed. My parents don't believe any of that, and they just treat me like complete crap. They always say bad things to me and force me to eat anything that they give me, even going as far as shoving food down my throat. Around a month ago, I got sick of being treated like this, and I spoke to them about it, and a whole thing happened. I say, Mum, Dad, I want to tell you something. And Mum says, what is it now? I can't stand being treated like complete crap. You literally forced food down my throat, and I'm sick of fudging up my own body because of you. Dad says, son, firstly, you're disrespecting us. Second, we know what's right for you. Stop pretending that you're faking everything, please. And I say, you don't know what's right for me. All you do is abuse me, and you're literally destroying me. I almost killed myself because of you. Oh, stop with your fake suicide bullcrap, or we'll have to do something drastic. Dad says, don't worry, honey. I know what to do. He went too far this time. Then he proceeds to lock me in my room for 3 weeks without food, and with only some limited access to water and bathroom. I almost starved to death because of this punishment. It should be called a form of torture, not a punishment. I just wanted to share this. I couldn't keep it up and someone must know about this. I hope your situation is better than mine. Edit. I called CPS. They said they are coming ASAP. Edit 2. CPS came. They called the police and they're taking me away. I'm probably finally free, but my dad said that he'll find me and get revenge on me. Posted by user MotionlessExe. Titled, Homophobic ED Gets Decked in the Face. This is my first post on here. This happened a little bit ago, but I didn't have enough karma until recently. Please let me know if I do something wrong or make any typos. Also, I'm not entirely sure if this belongs here, but it felt appropriate. If you know of another sub where it would fit better, let me know. So, a little background. I have some family in my hometown, and some in the city next to my college town. Sometimes my family leaves their children with me if they're doing something where children would not be ideal to have. I don't mind it, I have an apartment, the children are well behaved, and it's a good way to make some extra cash. Our players are ED, the devil's spawn, K is ED's child, OP, it's a me, and BF, an angel, my boyfriend. One fateful day, as I was studying for finals, I got a text from a number that I didn't know asking if I could babysit his child for a couple of days. After I asked who it was, he told me his name, which I still don't recognize, but turns out we went to the same high school, and according to him, we went on one date. I asked my friend about it, and she informed me that we in fact did not go on a date. He invited himself along with a group of my friends, and felt comfortable doing so because he knew my brother. By the way, he was a senior when I was a freshman. I don't know if that's relevant, but I just felt like putting that out there. Anyway, I told him no. I had finals all week and I needed to study. He called me a few times after I said no, and I ignored him, not thinking too much of it. The next day, I was going out to breakfast with a few of my classmates right before our finals. As I'm exiting the gate, I spot a man in a truck with a child in the passenger seat, and I guess he spotted me too because this guy reversed and blocked my exit. I honked multiple times, but to no avail. He ends up getting out and shoving the child towards my car, so I roll down my window. And ED says, "Hey, Opie, it's ED. Thanks for taking care of my child." "No, I said I couldn't." "Well, then you should have chosen a better job." ED runs back to his truck and zooms away, leaving the frightened-looking Kay staring at me. Not wanting to leave a 7-year-old alone in a city she isn't from, with only a Paw Patrol backpack as a defense, I decide to take her into my apartment and call my boyfriend. He comes over right away, and like the angel he is, takes care of her while I go have breakfast with my classmates, and take the finals that I had that day. Luckily, boyfriend didn't have any until the next day. We managed to take care of Kay for 3 days before ED returned. Boyfriend and I were celebrating finals week being over. Not how we wanted since Kay was there, but I digress. When there was a knock on the door. ED was there, looking as greasy as the day he abandoned his child. I don't know who raised this man, but they should have done a better job, as his first words to me when I opened the door were, "How did it feel being Kay's stepmom?" Which he said with a smug smile on his face. "What are you talking about?" "Yeah, I was thinking we should go out again since Kay loved you so much." Again, we never went out in the first place. He also never called to check up on Kay. So no, Kay didn't tell him how much she loved me. ED pushed past me, probably looking for Kay, who was sitting on the couch with my boyfriend, trying to teach her how to play Animal Crossing. This sight, for some reason, enraged entitled Dad, and he said, "Who the frick is this F-slur?" I assumed entitled Dad called boyfriend that because boyfriend has a very pretty face and a feminine clothing style. That day, he happened to be wearing a sheer top and his hair was in a tiny ponytail, so I guess that made entitled Dad mad. I, trying to keep cool, say, "That's my boyfriend. He's been helping me take care of Kay." At this point, boyfriend was next to me and Kay was still on the couch, still entertained by Animal Crossing. "You left my daughter with this pedophile?" "Nobody here is a pedophile. Just take your kid and go." "Everyone knows gays are pedophiles, and you let Kay around one?" "Come on, man. Don't talk like that around your kid. Just take Kay and we'll be out of your hair." Entitled Dad got in boyfriend's face. You know how kangaroos stand up tall on their hind legs to assert dominance? Well, it was like that, but entitled Dad was on his tippy toes and boyfriend was in his normal posture. "OP was supposed to take care of my daughter, not invite random guys over. But what can I expect from a tramp like..." Entitled Dad didn't finish his sentence when boyfriend punched him straight in the face. I don't know if his nose got broken, but there was some blood. Entitled Dad got punched a couple more times before I could pull boyfriend away. Before leaving with his child, he threatened to report boyfriend to the police for assault. So I told him that if he did that, then I would report him for child negligence, and there was proof since there are cameras outside the apartment complex. I don't know if that's true or not, but anything to make him leave us alone. As they were leaving, Kay said, "Sorry about Dad," with a little pouty face. After they left, I found out who Kay's mother was and told her everything. She thanked me and asked if I would be a witness in her custody trial. I was like, hell yeah. Anyways, that was my entitled dad encounter. Hella wild, and I hope I never meet another entitled parent again. Posted by user Boldly Speedy Dreamer. Titled, "Grandmother thinks denying me inheritance will make me straight." This is more entitled grandparents, but I don't know where else to put this. For some context, my maternal grandmother, who I've been estranged from for a while now, passed away last month. I refused to attend the funeral because I didn't feel comfortable being around that side of my family, since they were always cruel to my siblings and I. Well, yesterday I got a call from my grandmother about inheritance. In all seriousness, I had zero expectation on that front, since my grandfather didn't exactly like me. However, he apparently did leave me something in his will, though I'll never be able to collect it. He set a certain clause, I don't think that's what it's called, for me to be allowed to receive it. The conversation went as followed. GM is grandmother, me is me. GM says, I'm sorry you couldn't make the funeral, OP. I didn't go because you told me I couldn't. No, I said your friend couldn't. He's my husband. I'm not doing this again with you. Fine. Anyways, I wanted to talk to you about your inheritance. Inheritance. Grandfather hated me. What the hell would he leave me? I'm not sure. The attorney said that it was meant for your eyes only by his wishes. Okay. However, there are a couple of things you're required to do before you receive it. Which would be, you have to divorce your husband and marry a woman, approved by me, of course. Oh, I already know a lovely girl that would be willing. What? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Absolutely not. But you have to, otherwise you can't have your inheritance. I don't care. I never wanted anything from that man. You can keep this stupid inheritance. I don't want it, and I don't want to talk to you anymore. Stop being so dramatic. You're just like your mother. I hung up, and I haven't heard anything since. I don't know if what she said was true, but I don't care. Even if I had been able to claim the inheritance, I wouldn't have. I talked to my mum today, and she told me she got an angry call from my grandmother about me being an unreasonable and disrespectful. She fully supported me telling my grandmother no. My siblings have also said they received similar calls about inheritance and also refused. We plan to all finally fully cut contact with that side of the family, and honestly, we should have sooner. Posted by user, directed accordingly. Titled, Entitled Mother began body shaming me after I stopped her kid from damaging property. For context and background, this took place when I was 20 and worked in a local shop where I grew up. Unfortunately, this area in my city is known for being a hub for entitled parents, snooty and posh to put it nicely. When I worked there, I had a lot of encounters with entitled parents, but there were a handful of customers who were absolutely lovely. Posh as anything, but as kind as can be. Sadly, none of these nice people are in this story. The store was located within a 2-minute walk from a primary school. Every Monday to Friday, when the clock hits 3:05 p.m., the shop basically becomes a scene from an apocalypse movie, when the public go crazy trying to grab supplies in the stores except with kids. It's also one-manned, meaning that there is only one staff member in at the time, mainly because the store is pretty small. So between 3 and 3:05 p.m., you have to get everything you need and lock yourself behind the counter because it's impossible to move around once kids are in. The parents are typically waiting outside and chatting to each other, while sometimes the parents wait in store on their phones, basically leaving it to whoever is working to watch their kids. The story. So 3:05 p.m. hit, and the horde of kids came in, screaming and laughing as usual. According to my co-workers, they tend to all come to the counter at once and never queue, but I never had that issue. Sure, some kids try to skip, but they knew if I do that when I'm in, I will ignore them and make them wait till the end. The queue was forming when I noticed a boy about 8 years old storming around, our entitled kid of today. Something was off about the kid, so as I served the kids in the queue, I also had an eye on entitled kid. I noticed entitled kid started acting shifty as he kept looking over his shoulder at a woman on her phone, our entitled mother, and acted like he was up to something. I started to get concerned, but decided to keep an eye on him and continue serving the kids. That's when I heard a slight banging sound. I look up to see where entitled kid was, but I couldn't see him at all. So I checked the CCTV, which has a link up to my till, to show the other room. There he was, kicking a tall stand holding confectionery. I stopped serving the kids. The kids were all well-mannered and patient, bless them, and called over to entitled mother. She didn't respond. I called over again, trying to get her attention. Still no response. Oh, did I forget to mention that she was literally 6 feet away from me? So I tried again, and yet again I was ignored. I checked the camera again, and entitled kid was still kicking the stand, but now the stand was wobbling. I panicked as the kid is guaranteed to get an injury if he continued. I called over to the next room telling the kid I can see him and to stop. I saw he heard me based on his reaction in the camera, but still decided to kick the stand. I called again, and the same thing happened. This time, Entitled Kid visibly mocked me while he kicked it. So again, I stopped the service, but this time went through the kid as Entitled Mother was still ignoring everything around her. I yelled at the kid from the archway, so I could still see the till. "Hey kid, I told you to knock that off. Unless you want to pay for the damage you're doing, then I suggest you cut it out." The kid looked at me as if he had never been told off before, and I went back to the counter and continued serving the kids. As I was serving them, Entitled Mother approached the counter with Entitled Kid sobbing behind her. "What the hell did you do to my son?" I looked up, and Entitled Mother was screaming uncontrollably at me. "The hell is wrong with you screaming at a child?" I told the woman that I tried to get her attention multiple times, and she chose to ignore me. Even called to her, saying what she looked like to get her attention. Entitled Mother ignored me, and told me that that didn't matter, and that I had no right to yell at her kid. I told her calmly that Entitled Kid was kicking a stand that could have fallen on him, as well as the fact that Entitled Kid was damaging store property. Then Entitled Mother ignored what I was saying and chose a different approach to try to defend her child by focusing on my appearance. And although I was in the store uniform, which is a black shirt and a black skirt, my figure is hard to hide. I have an exaggerated hourglass figure, so even if I wore very conservative clothing, it is still hard to conceal. I'm not a fan of people drawing attention to it. I had customers sexualize me before, but I tried to ignore it. Entitled Mother started spouting how I had no right to yell at her son, then adding, "I'll have you fired for this. I'm shocked you still have a job considering how sexually you're dressed around children." That completely threw me off. I tried to ignore it and told Entitled Mother just to watch Entitled Kid from now on, but Entitled Mother decided to continue. She told me how disgusting I was sexualizing myself around children, how her precious baby shouldn't be exposed to my body, and how I was clearly desperate for attention because I was exposing my figure for their husbands. Saying how she will complain to the owner, who is a dear friend, and have me fired for my inappropriate appearance. I told Entitled Mother to stop, that her comments were highly inappropriate, and told her to leave. Also telling her that the owner is actually my best friend. He got me the job. She kept saying, "Well, I'm only saying what everyone is thinking. You're disgusting. Yelling at children and dressing like a tramp for attention? Absolutely disgusting, and you should be ashamed. This is not the place for," while pointing at my body, "this." I stopped trying to be polite after this, and told Entitled Mother to leave immediately, or I will have to call the police to remove her. She said how I have no right to remove her, but I responded, damaging property, sexualizing me, using profanities in front of children, abusing staff, and let's not forget, negligence towards your own child's safety. Yes, I can. Entitled Mother screamed at me about owing her an apology for yelling at her son and saying what I said. But I picked up the phone and started to dial, reminding Entitled Mother that she is on camera. She grabbed Entitled Kid and left, telling me how despicable I am and telling me how I better not have kids. I didn't call the police and just put the phone down and continued serving. After the kids were all served, a few of the parents approached me saying, "That woman, oh my god, what happened?" Which I knew damn well was these people's attempts to get gossip. I just told them, "It's been handled, but thanks for your concern." Posted by user Who Stole My Cake, titled, "My entitled mother despises my girlfriend, which just led us to move in together. My mother then almost poisoned my girlfriend's dog." I'll put some background first. I, 18 male, have just finished moving in with my girlfriend, 18 male, from now on Eva, obviously a fake name. We've moved in my grandparents' old house. They've moved into a smaller place years ago, and my mother was to make sure it is in good condition, which she did not. In 5 years, of course it didn't become a desolate ruin, but still, The time in which nothing was done there took its toll. Several months ago, even long before Rona was a thing, I had a dispute with my mother about my relationship with Eva and my at the time insane workload, which led me to consideration of moving out and subsequently doing it. When my grandparents found out that I'm staying in my dorms and looking for a place to move in with Eva, they offered their old house, under the condition that we'll fix it up. Then, Rona happened, and almost everything was immediately closed down. The time has come. My grandparents proposed that Eva and I can stay in their house during the pandemic. Well, months have passed. Eva and I were almost done with everything that is needed to move in completely when my mother came around, asking if she can stay for some time because she and my dad needed some time apart. I wonder why, lol. This was already when almost all restrictions were lifted, so Eva and I have found jobs. So my mother is there alone with Eva's dog, from now on Snickers, which is obviously a fake name, which she took along, obviously because the two can't exist, and to be honest, I got to love him as well during the past months, without each other. Important later. Now, since she's home alone, you'd expect her to do something, right? Well, no. I mean, if you're staying with someone and make them do concessions for your comfort for longer periods of time, weeks, months, it's a basic politeness to at least help by doing little things and try not to add even more work, right? My problem is that all she was doing is sitting and watching TV and did not do anything other than get in the way, add work, tramp about everything, and interrupt even the tiny bit of privacy Eva and I got. Dog fed? Yes, but not enough. Dog bored? Yes. Simple meal cooked? No. Work? Added for me and Eva to do it. Chips and similar stuff? Expenses skyrocketed and crumbs were everywhere. Hotel Trivago. Yeah, I might sound harsh and as an a-hole here for expecting a guest to do jobs around my house, but all I wanted and asked for her to do is clean up the mess that she has made, fill a bowl, throw a tennis ball a few times, and make some packet meal for the evening. One of the arguments regarding this was, exactness not guaranteed by the way, I asked what should I do for the evening and for the next day. Mum said that she doesn't care. Eva said that a homemade pizza for the evening and mashed potatoes with schnitzel for the next day would be good. Pizza and mashed potatoes with schnitzel. As I'm midway through the process of putting all the things on the pizza, Mum comes and says, I don't want a pizza or schnitzel. It all was not long ago. I'm sorry, but you said you didn't care. If you mind, you can take the leftover goulash from yesterday or make yourself a packet soup. Ah, don't talk to me like that. Then stop complaining. If you have such a problem with what we're cooking, just cook for yourself. Don't disrespect me like that. I gave birth to you. I cared for you. I raised you. That's cool and all, but I don't remember tramping about what you made for food. Shut up. You have no right to talk to me like that. But unless you calm the hell down, I have full right to tell you to F off out of this house. A few days have passed and Eva noticed my mother has dropped a cookie, then one half coated in chocolate, near Snickers. Chocolate is poisonous for dogs. My mother likely fully well knew when she dropped it, and obviously, Snickers with his state-of-the-art detection of food on the ground immediately went to examine the cookie. Eva luckily took it before Snickers could eat it, and she says, I'm sorry, but you have to be careful with chocolate around Snickers. He almost ate the cookie you dropped. So, you feed him cookies all the time. Yep, and those are cookies I make specially for him. But what you dropped might kill him. Oh, come on, there's just a little chocolate on it. Just, please be careful. Pfft, just a stupid and dirty flea bag. My mother has thrown a massive crap into a massive fan. Eva is in general very easy to piss off. This applies twice when it regards someone or something she deeply cares about and loves. I could literally see Eva turn bright red from rage with smoke coming out of her ears. Listen here, this stupid dirty flea bag, given the amount of crap I have to clean up after you every fudging day, is way more hygienic and intelligent than you are. Oi, come on, quit it you two. Listen here, You cheeky little disrespectful tramp. You have no right to shout at me like that. I again unsuccessfully tried to break it up before they do something worse, and at this point, Snickers started to growl and bark at my mother, so I had to drag him outside or he might attack her. And given he's of the bigger and stronger breed, that would not be good. Yeah? And you have no fudging right to call me these names. Oh, just continue. You're just proving that you're just a little insolent immigrant filth tramp. Just look at that crap I give about what you think about me. Just continue. You're just proving that you're narcissistic and xenophobic and that the only good thing about you is giving birth to OP. I finally got back, and I will spare you the further insults. Basically ended up with me kicking out my mother and with Eva crying curled up in a ball on a bed while sobbing, "I'm so sorry." I pieced it together and figured that my mother was trying to break me and Eva apart all along. Eva and I are to get our licenses and a car from her parents this week, which means full independence, which means that my mother's plans to prevent me from moving in with Eva have failed, and that I won. Both the battle against my narcissistic entitled mother and the lottery of life by moving in with the person I love. Yes, Eva might not have behaved accordingly, but neither did my mother for the past 2 fudging years, since Eva and I have started to have something between us. Posted by user Akio Amadeo, titled, "Mum wanted me to give my sister my house, and sister says I stole her dream." When me and my husband decided to move, we wanted to live on our own spot of land instead of the cookie-cutter community and no HOA. The house was still mortgaged. It was a 2-story, 5-bedroom, and 3.5 bath house, and was less than a year old. Me and my husband at the time had no kids, only 2 dogs, and while we loved the house, the taxes and HOA fees and maintenance were really annoying to us and overly priced. And we wanted a little more privacy too, because our neighbors were literally 2 feet away from our own home. We were at a small family gathering with my parents and siblings, discussing our options about where we wanted to move to, and if we wanted to build or buy a temporary mobile home to save up for our true dream house. I noticed my sister pull my mother aside and were whispering about something, but I ignored it, as my dad was telling us about some great opportunities in some nice country-like areas, which was what we were hoping for. I always wanted to raise sheep and chickens and needed an area that allowed that. Later that night, my mom and sister asked if they could speak to me privately, which was never a good sign. But I sighed and we went into my mom's bedroom and closed the door, like they were ready to punish me or something, which made me anxious. She says, "Listen, honey, me and A have been talking, and we were thinking it would be a really good idea if you sold your house to A. She has 3 kids, and the house she lives in now is so small. This would be a major help to her and her family." My mom was using a tone like someone would use for a 5-year-old. I was 33 at the time, and I said, "That's not a problem. She just needs to go through the proper channels like everyone else. I can get you in contact with the realtors, and you can take it from there," thinking she wanted to buy the house legit. No, you don't understand," my sister whined, as she looked at Mum all teary-eyed. She would do this so my mum would take pity on her, and apparently they had discussed this before coming to me. "Honey, your sister's credit isn't good, so she would never qualify for such a big loan to buy your house. So we were thinking that maybe you could transfer the house into her and her husband's name, but you keep paying the mortgage, and your sister will pay you under the table what is owed, and that way she can get the house, and you won't be losing any money over it, since she'll be paying you back after all." Still talking to me all sweet-like. What? Are you kidding me? So, do you have any idea what the mortgage is? It's $2,500 a month. A and you and your husband barely make $25,000 a year. That's when he actually has a job. And you don't work at all, not to mention the $1,500 land taxes and the $800 HOA fees. I understand you want a better place, but I know for a fact there would be a month you would fall on hard times, like you always do, and not be able to pay for that month, and I can't afford to keep you there if you don't pay, which we both know will eventually happen. You need to buy this house legit or not at all. I'm not making any kind of deals because we need to be selling the house to buy our new place anyway. I was about to leave, but my sister busted into tears at this. Mommy! Me and my husband will work really hard to pay you back every month, I swear. We need this place because we would never be able to get a place like this on our own. This is our only chance. She began to cry into my mother's chest at this. You need to stop being so selfish. You and your husband are in the living room bragging about building a house and getting your own land and everything, knowing your sister is having so many financial difficulties and raising 3 children. My mum yelled at me. Exactly my point. She is always struggling financially. How can she afford $2,500 a month on mortgage alone? I would eventually end up just paying her mortgage all the time because her husband changes jobs like I change underwear and I simply can't afford it. And since the house would be in her name, then I would have no way to kick her out. Eventually, I would just have to stop paying, and the bank would repossess the house, and I would be left with nothing financially, which we need to fund getting a new place. Not to mention damaging my credit score, which I worked very hard to make good. Harsh, yes, but the truth often is. I can't believe you are doing this just to spite me. You are stealing my dream and not even giving me something in return. She began to whine even more. What are you talking about? Stealing your dream? I was really confused. I was always the one who wanted to buy my own little spot of land and build a little house. You were talking about raising chickens and planting a garden. Those were my dreams, and you were stealing them, you selfish tramp, she yelled. Oh wow, imagine that. I want to be a homeowner. You were the only one in the world that wanted that? I guess Mum stole your dream too, right? She owns land and a house and gardens all the time. And oh my god, B's sister does that too. And she raises chickens. We all stole your dream. I was being overly sarcastic because it was so ridiculous. That's different. They are older than me, but you're younger. You shouldn't upstage your older sister like this. Just because you and your husband make more money than us, it's not fair. She was still crying and making a huge scene, but I was done with this at this point. The answer is no. You want the house, you buy it legit, not under the table, and certainly not me footing the bill and losing a ton of cash that I know inevitably will happen. And I'm not stealing anything from you. If I want a little plot of land and to grow a garden and raise chickens, that's my choice. You have nothing to do with how I live my life. If this is such a reasonable request, Mum, then why don't you buy her a house legit, put it in her name, and just let her pay you under the table too, instead of asking your daughter to take care of her sister? A is your child, not mine, and I will not spend our hard-earned money supporting her and her family. A was throwing a huge fit after that, crying and begging my mum to make me do this like we were still little kids or something. It was a pretty sad sight to see her throwing a tantrum like a 2-year-old. Yeah, and she's the golden child. Really? I told my husband we needed to leave, and we spent the drive home with me telling him what my mum and sister were trying to pull over on us. He responded, "Even if you did agree, did she really think I would go for it? I like your family and all, but damn, your sister is something else altogether. Stealing her dream? What was that all about?" he asked as we laughed about it a little. We have our own land now, and are living in a double-wide trailer that we love. 5 bedrooms and 3 full baths, and thankfully no stairs, no HOA, much cheaper mortgage and taxes, and wonderful privacy. I could walk around naked with all the windows open and no one would see me. Not that I do, but I could if I wanted to, lol. My sister has moved thrice within the last 2 years, and is always renting because their credit is terrible, and they can't get a loan to buy any house. I just heard from my mother that they have been sending them money almost monthly for groceries because they can barely afford to buy food. Yeah, and you think she could have afforded that mortgage? I don't regret my decision one bit. And I love my little vegetable garden that I make homemade soup with often. Posted by user Smile of the Beast. Titled, Karen wants her stolen table set back. When I was 9, in 2001, My folks and I moved into a rental house. This previous tenant left behind 2 things: a beautifully carved stone table and a chair set, and a very shy ginger cat. We adopted the cat. The table and chairs sat in the front yard, easily seen by anyone walking past. Coming home from school, I find my mum talking with police and a massive dead patch of grass where the table used to stand. Somehow, someone had stolen the table set. It wasn't light. A truck would have been needed to cart it away. We never got it back. A year later, Karen knocks on the door. The conversation may be paraphrased slightly, as it happened so long ago. Mum says, "Hi, can I help you?" "Yeah, hi. I used to live here and wanted to organize a time to retrieve my stone table set." The table set that was sitting in the front yard. "That's the one. I was thinking..." Hold on. That set was stolen about a year ago, and even if it wasn't, you left it here, without any contact, for over 2 years. The landlord tried to contact you, but you essentially abandoned the property. Well, I didn't have room for it at my new place. Now I do. I have the receipt, so it's still mine. It was stolen. And I noticed you haven't asked about the cat you left here either. You think you can push that thing on me when you don't have my table set? God, no. I wouldn't let you anywhere near him with your attitude. He's registered to us now anyway. You have no more business here. Leave. She slammed the door in Karen's face. I'd never seen my mum so angry. She hugged our cat for 10 minutes straight. Karen wasn't finished though. She called the cops, because of course she did. Cops arrived. Mum went out to meet them. She didn't want me to hear what went on, but she summarized later. Basically, Karen claimed Mum was hiding her table set and preventing her from getting her property back. Mum explained what happened, provided the landlord's phone number, and suggested they look in their records because the table was officially stolen. Police left. Karen didn't get her table. We kept the cat. Posted by user Tsundere Shadowrain. Titled, "Neighborhood had my brother's car towed on our property." I'm pretty ticked because this happened just a few hours ago. Anyway, to set the stage as players, we have me, my neighbor, who from here on will be referred to as Nosy Old Bat, Nob for short, and yes, she's an entitled boomer. Her husband, nice neighbor, my brother, mentioned rather than involved, and my grandmother. For some backstory, Nob and I both live on corner houses next to a busy street, which is relevant to the story. And oh man, is this lady bordering on r/insane people level of crazy and nosy, because oh my god, she's nuts. I've lived in this house my entire life with my grandmother. I'm 28, and where I live, it's hard to live on your own, especially in the pandemic going on now and being temporarily out of work, because finding work that's disabled accommodating is a pain, especially when you have asthma and people are paranoid that an asthmatic has COVID. I get it, but it's tiring to explain that no, I don't have the virus, I have asthma, and I can't infect anyone with my bad lungs. And Nob used to watch me for a little bit when I was 6, until my aunt could pick me up to babysit me. This apparently has given her the mindset that she can attempt to control my life and tattle on me to my grandmother, who nowadays knows when I have company and if a friend parks in her driveway. I call or text her to let her know, and ask her to let me know when she'll be home so I can tell my friend they need to move their car unless grandma tells me that it's fine and she'll park on the side of the street, which she does occasionally, even if there's no one in the driveway. A non-issue, right? Not to Nob. She has been known to get up in my business, to go and knock on my door and demand to know who's in there, and if I'm doing the nasty with those friends, I'm asexual, so it's hilarious when people ask me if I'm sleeping around, but it's infuriating when Nob asks this because she's nosy AF, and thinks she practically owns the neighborhood due to the aforementioned corner houses, and acts as if this is an HOA. It's not, thank everything, and that she's in charge, as should we be because of our house on the other corner. She makes calls on other people's behalves constantly. We are no different. Anyway, dressing the stage aside, the story of the title. Alright, so my little brother is a Marine and is currently deployed in Hawaii, and his car has been on our property for a while now because, well, he can't come and drive it since he's in Hawaii. This apparently gives her the idea to call a tow truck because it hasn't been moved since he left it. It's not even a terrible looking car either, but I guess it ticked her off that it was sitting there due to it being a car she didn't know. My grandmother's now dead truck has been there longer, but Nob knows whose it is because she's seen her drive it. This happened between the time my grandmother and I left for Costco and the time we got home. Nob called the towing company to tow my brother's car because, in her batty old boomer logic, after my grandmother went over to her house to confront her, it's been there for over 2 weeks and is just sitting there, on our property, not hurting anyone. Her husband, nice neighbor, as crotchety as he can be, was unaware his wife did this because he likely wasn't home, so he'd said that he wasn't sure when he talked to us. So, now my grandmother has to call the police and the towing company to get the car back, and she is rightfully furious, as am I, about this because it means another towing fee that was completely unnecessary. She can't even get it until tomorrow because nothing is even open. She was met with voicemails of the towing not even being open either, which was bizarre before 7 PM, but whatever. I don't have the towing hours since we haven't had to deal with that before. I absolutely hate Nob with a seething and unholy passion, because this isn't the first time she's attempted this garbage either. She's done this on other neighbors because she thinks she can police the neighborhood because of her corner house logic. I do not care how rude this makes me, but I will not be paying that towing fee, and I will not be letting my grandmother pay for it. Nob will be paying that because it was none of her business to be nosing her old face into things. I don't care if you're old. You do not stick your nose in someone else's business and life, especially if the thing in question is on someone else's property. I will take this woman to court if she refuses to pay for this because she had no right to do this. I mean, what was my brother supposed to do? Be all like, oh hey guys, it's been 2 weeks. Let me go back to my grandmother's and drive my car around the block. I'll be back on Monday with all the flights. Yeah, as if his CEO would allow for that just because of Nob. I'll give updates if anything further happens because yeah, I'm furious and don't really care if the old woman doesn't want to pay for it. She will, or face court for her nosiness. Update. My cranky and tired butt marched over to her house. She was awakened outside and ripped a new one into her about keeping her nose in her own crap and to pay for the towing, or I was going to take it to higher up and nail her for illegally having it towed. She's paying for the tow truck, reluctantly. I haven't slept. Thanks, insomnia. You're a pal. So I have no Fs to give about being cordial or polite with this BS. Entitled people need to learn to mind their own damn business and leave people alone. Posted by user PoliticsNerd67. Titled, If your oldest child is essentially a secondary parent to their siblings, you are probably an unfit parent. I'm an only child, but I've seen lots of stories on Reddit about people who have essentially had to raise their siblings because their parents couldn't, and it's horrible. Either get a babysitter or don't have more kids than you can parent. These are your children, not those of the oldest child. Therefore, they are only your responsibility. Parenting is 100% a choice that you chose to make. Yes, the oldest should help out, as all the kids should, but their lives shouldn't be centered around taking care of their siblings. I posted this on r/unpopular opinion today, and apparently people think I'm some kind of a-hole for thinking parents who turn their kids into secondary parents and have kids when they can get a sitter or nanny, and parents who have kids when they are not in a good state financially or mentally to have kids are irresponsible and selfish. Because, you know, let's care more about not hurting the parents' feelings than the well-being of the children, right? Now, I'm going to clear up some misconceptions commenters made about my beliefs on r/unpopular opinion. 1. I'm specifically referring to older siblings whose lives have been centered around taking care of their siblings. That's what I mean by secondary parent. Obviously, siblings should help out, but there's a difference between helping out and being a secondary parent. If you want to be a secondary parent, then fine, but that doesn't mean all older siblings should do the same. 3. I know there are certain circumstances where it's not the parent's fault. I have sympathy for those people, but a lot of the time, it is their fault. 4. There is nothing wrong with looking up to your older siblings. That's great. 5. I've had to say this a whole lot in response to the commenters, so I will say it again. Most people stay in one economic class their whole lives. People who have extreme financial changes are in the minority. I am sympathetic to those in that minority. I am not sympathetic to those people who have kids when they don't have the financial or mental ability to do so. Parenting is 100% a choice. Don't forget that. 6. I realize that there are kids that exaggerate their responsibilities. I'm not referring to those people in my post. Posted by user ILoveMe39, titled, Entitled Parents, Leave Everything You Have to Our Children. I'm 39, successful, and am quite well off. My siblings, sadly, are not. My brother, 42, has 3 children. My sister, 35, also has 3, with 1 on the way. My younger sister, 28, is married and pregnant, but she had nothing to do with the events of the post. We were all raised to believe that money doesn't matter, and all you need is a happy marriage and lots of kids to live a happy life. Being poor and having lots of kids was somehow glorified. Maybe because that's the way our parents lived and wanted to convince themselves that they didn't screw up. Fortunately for me, I didn't buy into that nonsense. I always knew I never wanted children. I focused on my career and on achieving success. Today, I have my own house, wonderful pets, and a loving boyfriend. My family, however, seems to think that there's something wrong with my lifestyle. My parents have often commented that my 5-bedroom house is empty without any kids running around. My siblings often tell me I'm selfish for not having kids and actually enjoying my life. However, their disdain for my selfish lifestyle doesn't stop them from begging for money. My brother and sister have called me and asked me to help me pay their bills. Now, if it's something serious like clothes or school supplies for their kids, I'm willing to pitch in, but I always refuse when I'm asked to pay for trips to amusement parks, etc. I also paid for my parents to stay in a high-end assisted living facility. They are my parents. I felt that I owed them this much. I've moved them to a less luxurious facility because of something horrible they did. I'll make a post about that too if you're interested. However, I couldn't help but feel insulted when they sang praises for my siblings for breeding and following in their footsteps, and how my parents wish I had done the same. As if, among all their kids, I'm the biggest disappointment. For this reason, I've distanced myself from them. I only call or visit to check up on them, and don't let them be a part of my life. The other day, I got a call from my sister asking if she, her husband, my brother, and his wife could come over. I said okay. They asked me to leave my fortune to their kids, in equal portions, and if I did, they would stop asking me for financial help. They said this as if they were doing me a favor. "You don't have kids, so who are you going to leave it to?" asked my brother. I told them I was going to leave my money to charities and that I don't owe them crap. When they went on the "you're selfish" tirade, I told them to get lost. The next morning, I got a call from my dad telling me they were disappointed in me. I simply hung up. The one family member who has stood by me is my youngest sister. She actually has her crap together, and I could not be more proud of her. Edit. Here's what my parents did to deserve the downgrade. After the altercation with my siblings, my parents tried a different strategy. They tried to sweet-talk me, and suddenly their tune had changed from "you're so selfish" to "aw, we didn't mean it, let's talk." So after they kept pestering me to have a word with them in person, I invited them over. Now, my parents know damn well that chocolate is bad for dogs, but my mum has tried to give them some on many occasions. When I tell her off, she always comes back with, "but maybe they like it," and "I was just being nice." This time when they came over, I left them in the living room and went to the kitchen to get some refreshments. While I was there, one of my dogs came over to greet them. I could see them from the kitchen. My mum petted him for a while, then reached into her purse and pulled out a bar of chocolate. She broke off a piece and was able to give it to him when I stormed over and knocked it out of her hands. My parents looked shocked. I was enraged. Even after being told repeatedly that chocolate is bad for dogs, they just didn't get it. When I asked my mum what the hell she was doing, my dad actually started yelling at me and told me that I was being rude. I told them either they were complete idiots or they were intentionally trying to hurt my dog. I told them I was sick of their BS and that they were on very thin ice with me. When they tried to argue back, I grabbed my dad by the arm and walked him out of the door. My mum followed. This was less than a month ago, and a few days ago, they were moved to a much less cushy facility. They won't be mistreated, I would never allow that to happen, but all they'll have are nutritious meals, medical care, and a television they'll have to share with the others. The nice, fully furnished mini apartment they had earlier, with all kinds of luxuries, will soon be a distant memory. Edit 2. To all those assuming I'm a man, I'm actually a woman. Alright guys, that's where I'm going to end today's video. I really do hope you enjoyed it, and maybe even learned something that you didn't know before. If you haven't already, please do feel free to click that like button, as it really does help me in the YouTube algorithm. And if you haven't already and you love today's video, please feel free to subscribe. I would love it a lot. Also, big shout out to all my Patreon members and channel subscribers. You guys are all up on the screen right now. I love you. I love your faces. Also, I love seeing you guys all chatting down below in the comments. It brightens my day to see the stories that you guys share and just the kind words you guys always have for my videos, as well as everyone else in the videos. I love you too. But honestly, your ongoing support means the world to me, and I just love it so much that you guys are able to support a career for myself that I invest so much time into. And you guys honestly motivate me to work harder each and every day to put more love into the videos for you guys. If you guys have watched this far in the video and you haven't already subscribed on Patreon or become a channel member, that's cool, you don't have to, but there are links down below. You can donate any amount of money, pledge that any month, cancel whenever. I'm completely cool with it. It's just there for you to support me if you'd like to go the extra mile. And I'll go the extra mile for you guys by putting out new amazing content every single day. With that said guys, I really hope you have a good day, night, sleep, bath, time at work, whatever you're up to today. This has been Markee. I'll see you in the next amazing video. Bye.